Let's go.
What is up?
Prophet and Paradox, episode 746 or something. That sounds right? Does that sound right to you?
246.
740.
2,500. We've been doing this longer than Rogan.
Yes, Rogan, take notes. I'm excited. Today's going to be fun. We're going to try something we have not done before. Originally, we were going to do a really cool topic, which I definitely want to do. I think it's a very important topic, especially for the type of podcast that we are doing, right? Understanding what is truth, how we come to our conclusions. But if you guys own a telephone or a TV or any other device connected to the rest of the world, you know that this was like a pretty big week in the world of things that happen. And so we're like, all right, well, let's just talk about the things. And so I think we're going to talk about things today. It's going to be different, though, because both me and Jonah are kind of going to be learning about this stuff like new, right? We haven't necessarily read the articles. Our fantastic and faithful producer is in the background sending us all the deets. So we're kind of going to be reviewing this stuff with you guys together. Obviously, we both know there was a second assassination attempt, but apparently there's some information that's out there that we just want to discuss. We're going to go over it with you guys. So yeah, I think we're going to be learning this together and just kind of seeing how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I've only watched it. I've read like a few articles on the second assassination attempt, right? I know he's apprehended now. We have him. We know a little bit about him. So yeah, I mean, that'll be good. I mean, it's not good that that this is happening. It's really bad, right? I'm just curious, what the fuck is the Secret Service doing? I'd be down to kind of research that, but like, what is wrong with Trump's Secret Service? You know, I mean, like, what the hell? Like these people, like, are these people like Democrats? Like, I don't if you had my mom guarding Trump, it'd be really bad idea, right? But like, I don't get it. I thought the Secret Service was a little better at their job, you know?
I mean, maybe you feel like there are Latina girlfriends or girlfriends in the hood who are better aware of who's looking at their significant other than the Secret Service is watching out for Trump right now.
I mean, I just don't get it. Like, it's just so like, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know much of the details. Like, I don't know how this one, I know he wasn't nearly as close as the first one, right? Like, he didn't actually get even close to shooting him, right? It was like there were gunshots, but it was like he was way far away. There was no way to actually hit him. The guy was just waiting in a bush, and they sent Secret Service like ahead on the golf track. That's what I've read so far.
I think the guy was set up in a special area, which was just like oddly cut open and available for this guy to set up a makeshift sniper perch. And I think they saw the barrel of the gun sticking through the fence as he was rounding the fifth hole, going to the sixth hole, I believe, something like that. And that's when they advanced, they engaged with the attempted sniper, and then he took off. And it sounds like maybe the makeshift plates that he had set up as guards against gunfire, I think it maybe protected him from I mean, my guess is they're shooting with handguns, right? From whatever distance. And so, yeah, he took off, got in his car, and then they caught him later, is what I understand of the situation.
More or less how I understand it. Something like that.
So very interesting, but as expected, right? Just like this conversation is encouraging, there are a lot of questions surrounding this situation. Like, what is really going on here? What's happening? Why is this happening again? What's going on with Secret Service? Very interesting situations surrounding the shooter, which is really raising the question of, you know, what is really happening here? Is this just a series of, I mean, what could it mean, Jonah? Like, what are the conclusions? Conclusion number one is there's just a lot of crazy people out here who are being emotionally driven to do something this extreme. That's option number one. Option number two, there's a setup, right? Now let's be balanced. There's a setup from the left, and they want to take out, you know, Daddy Trump, as he's so lovingly referred. And so they ain't sending their best. If this is their best, I don't know. They're sending people. They're sending somebody. And then this is what's happening. Fortunately, I'm glad that they're not sending anybody more capable.
I would like to say that as a Democrat, we are better shots sometimes. You
I
know?
mean, you guys don't even like gun. Maybe this is the negative side effect of gun control.
You and I should go shooting. I actually do like guns, just FYI. I've been shooting guns.
I took off my gun shirt. I did. I was just wearing a Pew Professional shirt. I should have left it on.
You goddamn coward. How dare
I should have left it on. Well, I said it. I just did it because I didn't like the way it fit, right? It was too small. It was overwashed. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. So it's option 2. Here's a plausible situation, Jonah. One of the negative side effects of the left being so pro-gun control is they can't find an effective assassin for assassinations attempts because none of y'all know how to actually shoot guns. So they're like, all right, I'll do it. But I've never done this before.
Okay.
Which thing do I push?
I mean, I don't know. I obviously like all jokes aside, I obviously lean towards emotionally unstable people getting way too wrapped up into politics. That's what I lean towards.
There's other options. One, it's a setup on Trump's side. It's a setup on the left side. It's emotional people. And I'm sure there was another one. I can't remember what it is. But I guess of those, you're leaning towards emotional people meeting like negligence.
Well, also BlackRock. Don't we have some videos of the fact that both shooters were in BlackRock ads? Isn't that?
I think we do. Let's do it. Let's share them.
If we actually have that, if we have that set up, then that could be a possibility. I don't know. If that's true, then maybe what's the reason BlackRock doesn't like Trump? Are they all Democrats? I know they own a fuck ton of stuff. I don't know them at all.
The people who understand BlackRock believe that BlackRock funds the left. So BlackRock is the left because they're the ones who pay for everything.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know anything about BlackRock, really. I just know they own an insane amount of real estate. I know they own an insane amount of the stock market, right? I think it's $4 trillion under assets or something crazy like that. I could look that one up real quick.
Jamarco, can you do me a favor? So while you're looking that up, let's watch this video. Jamarco, can you real quickly, bro, find one of those graphics that show the percentage of ownership between Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, and the things that they own?
They have 10.5 trillion under asset, which is kind of crazy. That's half. That's a third, I think, of the US GDP every year. So that's pretty gnarly. So, yeah, no, they definitely own a ton of stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah, when you look at it, there's a graphic. I'll see if I can find it. Jamarco, if you can find it, it would be super interesting because what happens is this it? I think this is it, right? Here. Okay, so here's an example. This may not be the best. If you find something better than this, Jamarco, please feel free to share this. So here's all right. Financial titans collide between the symbolic relationship between Vanguard Group and BlackRock, right? So if you look at this, Jonah, let's see if I can zoom this in. Yeah, this is not going to be good. It's not that great. You can't really see it. Essentially, when you look at this, there's better graphics of this, Jonah. Almost every single solitary major corporation on the planet are owned by the same exact 3 companies. Oh, by the way, those 3 companies all own one another. Oh, by the way, all of those companies also own all of the banks. Oh, by the way, these are the same people that are behind the Federal Reserve and all these different things. This is factual information that you can cross-check. This isn't a conspiracy. Now, it's dismissed as conspiracy because conspiracy theorists use this information to point towards nefarious actions. At the very least, it's interesting, right? Jamarco just shared one in the chat, which I don't think I can open up here. But it shows, so Berkshire Hathaway, State Street, BlackRock, I don't know what these are. And how, I don't know. Do they all own one another?
Berkshire Hathaway is Warren Buffett's company.
Correct. We know that.
Wait, what are the 3 in the middle? Vanguard, BlackRock. What's the other one? Berkshire Hathaway?
State Street.
What is that? State Street. Okay.
Yeah. So all of these 3 companies own all of these other companies. They own a portion of one another. They all own each other. So essentially, they're all the same company. And they own all of the major stores. They own all of the major banks. They're behind all of the major decisions that happen in this world. So there are many people who believe, right, when we can call it conspiracy, let's call it coincidence, but there's a lot of people that believe that the fact that every single major company is owned by these companies, that these are the people that are influencing the decisions. And so what we know about what happens in the media and all this different stuff, it's just influenced by the same handful of people.
So question, I would like to know, can you go back to that graphic real quick?
Sure.
Do they own Fox and MSNBC?
I don't know that they own Fox. I know
that would be crazy. How wild would it be if they owned MSNBC and Fox? Because then it's like, wait a minute, you just want chaos then, I think.
Well,
so that would be interesting.
Murdoch originally owned Fox, I believe. And then he sold it, and I don't know who he sold it to. DeMarco, if you can find
that. Wait, is it in that graphic?
I'm looking right now. Let me reshare it. Share screen.
Also, I'm gonna let you take over a second. My lighting's all screwed up. I'm gonna turn off the natural light and turn on my artificial light. So hold on a second.
You look fantastic. By the way.
But like I won't look as good for the editing. Hold on.
Marco, if you could find this graphic that's just in better shape, that would be fantastic. If you guys can see this in the chat.
There are media companies on there, no?
Eversource. I'm looking at all of the oil companies. All of the oil companies are down here.
Just see if do they own any media? Where's the media companies on here?
Yes, they own 18% of Fox, 16% of CBS.
Where are you looking?
This is a separate. Not here. This is something else.
Okay, they own Fox and MSNBC though. They own like all the stations.
It looks like they own at least portions.
So what do you think of that? Because Fox is conservative. So what do you think of the fact that they might just be playing both sides for chaos?
I think it would, if it's true, which I believe we know to be true. You know what I think it means?
What?
I think it confirms the point that I've been saying all along, bro, that all of this stuff that we're seeing on TV is a game. They're giving us the illusion of choice. They're giving us the illusion of these things, when at the end of the day, it's divide and conquer. If you go and read any old book on war, there are a lot of books on this. There are a lot of theories on this. There are a lot of content for generations on stuff like this. It makes sense that they would divide and conquer. What this tells me is that it leads to the belief that I have of behind the scenes, everybody's on the same team. And they're telling us what they want us to hear for a specific agenda. What could be the possible agenda behind making the United States so incredibly divisive? We could discuss the benefits of doing that. But at the end of the day, I think it means that they're lying to us. They're playing us for a specific end. And the people who actually make the decisions are the people way in the background who are actually pulling all of the
I have a question for you. Because this is like, I'm not even against what you're saying right now, but I'm just curious what you think of this. Just hear me out and tell me if you think this is a possibility.
Okay.
So they own Fox News. Fox News is insanely pro-Trump, right?
Okay.
You agree with that, right?
Yeah.
What are the odds that Trump's in on it? Because I know you think he's like not in on the entire conspiracy, right? With like the world government and all of that stuff. But I just want to throw it out there as like a possibility to you guys, because I think there is some truth to this. I don't know if it means it's world government. I think there are strange things that I can't explain normally, but something that I'm curious about that like conservatives, I feel like, and I just want to understand why conservatives never think it's possible that Trump is also part of the global conspiracy. I'm just curious, like truly, honestly, like have we considered that he's in on it too? What if he's a part of all of it? Because I feel like conservatives give him a pass because he does things they like, That's my gut feeling, but I don't know if that's true. I don't know. What do you think of that? I'm just curious.
I love this question. I think this is an important question. This question actually goes into our decision making, right? Guys, the podcast we were going to do today before we talked about all the stuff that came up was how do you make decisions? How do you determine what is truth? So in this answer, this is kind of how I determine what's truth. In my opinion, Jonah, what I saw play out in 2016 was a front and center psyop before our eyes. Like in real time, we saw a psyop play out in front of our face. How? What do I mean? Well, whether people want to admit it or not, or people are old enough to remember or not, in 2014, 2013, before that, most people liked Donald Trump. Donald Trump was largely considered a positive figure. And every entrepreneur, not everybody, right?
I think like 2000s and earlier. I think so. I think he was doing a lot of the birther stuff with Obama that like kind of the left turned off of him from that. And I think that was in that.
I would agree with that. That definitely is a thing. But pre-politics, let's just call it pre-political conversations in that side. So 2010, let's say pre-2010, right?
Yeah.
So pre-2010, he was all over the place. The Apprentice was a #1 show. Everybody who was somebody in business liked the idea of being on The Apprentice, right? Black people liked Donald Trump. He was in countless rap videos. He was with countless athletes, countless artists. He opened up for Eminem and Busta Rhymes and Dr. Dre at a concert, right? He's with the WWE. This guy was legitimately just a white. Rosie O'Donnell wasn't a fan, right? Like for obvious reasons, because the way he came at Rosie O'Donnell. But as a general rule, he was this really liked guy. And there was never really a question at large scale whether or not this guy had issues with black people. Because would you agree or disagree, Jonah? If everybody knew that Donald Trump was racist, would Donald Trump be invited to multiple hip hop videos with rappers?
No, of course not.
Of course not. But he's in countless hip hop videos with rappers because he was just known to not be. Everybody kind of knew this about him. So what I remember watching 2016, he starts going for president. I remember them finding things to say and saying, this right here, this is the tagline. And what we're going to do is we're going to say it enough times that everybody just believes that it's true. And they're not going to question it anymore because they've heard it so much, it must be true. And I remember these things being thrown out there like racism. And it's just like, I remember watching it and I was like, they're not going to be able to sell this thing. There's no way they're going to sell this. This guy was good in the hood for a long time. Nobody had an issue with this dude. 0 people in the black community at a high level, to my recollection, ever had a negative thing to say against Trump. And you're not going to be hanging around all these hip hop people and be doing some shady stuff without somebody calling you out. This is hip hop. This is 90s, early 2000s hip hop. If you're doing some grimy stuff, you are getting called out. You're getting addressed for it, especially being in New York. You're not getting away with that.
He got away for it for a while.
What's that?
There. Diddy do thing? P. Diddy was like being forced to do homosexual things for like.
Yeah, but
years.
That's a whole different conversation. I'm talking about just racism. I'm just talking about being known as a racist person, right? And so I remember watching this and I'm like, there's no way they're going to believe this because he's an accepted dude. And the next thing you know, they repeat it enough times, all of a sudden this guy is obviously racist. How are you so... At first it's, yeah, he's racist. Then it's obviously he's racist. Then it's like, how do you not think he's racist? Then it's like, you don't hate him? You're racist too. I saw this evolution play out and it's like, oh my God, this is a psyop taking place. Here's my answer to your question, bro. I think that's a fair question. I think the right question is, how do we know Trump's not in on this? And I think the answer is we don't. I don't think we do. I don't. However, I don't think the evidence points to it. Because at the end of the day, there's expected a certain amount of pushback, a certain amount of friction, but there's a point where it's past presentation, it's past parlor tricks, and it's actual fighting. And I think they passed that with this guy. The level of fighting that goes back and forth between these two, it really makes me realize that the only reason they would go through this much trouble to try to take this dude down as if he's really a threat to their particular position. They didn't do this against any of the Bushes. Never once. Never once did it happen. It wasn't this bad against Reagan.
People calling George W. Bush a racist. That's for sure. At least my mom was yelling that at the TV. I remember that. I remember my mom when I'm like a little kid yelling at George W. Bush, being like, "What the fuck kind of this guy's fucking racist towards Middle Eastern?" Like I remember that.
Do you think it's the? Do you think the level of hatred spewed towards?
No, of course not. No. I mean, like in the terms of, I mean, I would say he said some stuff that's borderline. I would say in 2016, he said things that were like, okay,
did you read into it? Maybe
we could get into it if you want. I mean, the things that I remember, and I'm going purely off memory right now, were the main one that I remember that I was like, that seems racist to me, is the Muslim ban. I don't know if you remember that, how he was talking about how he's just going to ban all Muslims from coming into the country until they figure out what's going on. That seems racist. You're judging. I mean, yeah, most terrorists we're dealing with are Muslims, but also, I don't think you should stereotype every single Muslim. I have Muslim friends who are great people, right? I think that's kind of fucked to just blame it on that, right? That seems kind of racist to me, to be fair. I vaguely remember something with his hotels, and I won't say it because I don't remember it. I remember there was something about his hotels where he was doing racist stuff. The main one I remember is the Muslim ban. I remember him mostly being kind of racist towards Muslims during that campaign. I don't remember what they were talking about other than that, but yeah, that was the main one. I think
that would be my answer, man. Like, so I think
the rapist comment was borderline. The one about Mexicans, it's like bringing drugs, bringing rapists, yada yada.
No, right? I think that was an example of kind of what we were talking about. I don't know if it was in the voice chat or here in the podcast.
Okay, let's just say, because I know what you think about that comment. What do you think of the Muslim ban? Just being like, we're going to ban all Muslims.
You know, I don't. So step one, I don't remember the exact specifics, just like you don't either, to be able to give full context. But here's my question in response to that, because I genuinely am coming from a neutral place. I guess my question would be this. Let's say you and I, Jonah, are stepping into a position of political power. We're going to be the presidents of the United States. And we know that at that time, the biggest terrorist threat was coming from what ethnicity?
Muslims.
It was coming from Muslims. We knew that there were multiple threats of US-based terrorist attacks being threatened by Muslim terrorists. Right? We knew that to be true. We also know that the presented argument was that the previous administration had not done a sufficient amount to be able to protect or safeguard the United States. So we have an impending terrorist attack from what group of people? Those people happen to be Muslims. We don't have enough information to vet it, but we do know that we have enough information to say that there's a big threat. Our options are move slowly and methodical and hope that we don't offend anybody in the process. Do nothing and just keep doing what we've been doing and hope that the threats that are continuing to increase do nothing. Or three, go extreme and say, look, I don't like the way this sounds, but until we get this thing straightened out, we have to be as safe as possible. Right? Now, it's a two-step question, and obviously you know where I'm leading with this, but I guess my question is, of those three options, and then I'll give my follow-up, which one do you think, if you're going into the position of power, which one do you opt towards?
I would opt, I mean, if you want my honest opinion, I wouldn't do a full Muslim ban. I think
That's not what I'm asking. My question is, option one is do nothing and hope everything turns out okay. Option two is doing what we've been doing, knowing that what we've been doing has been making the progress worse, or the problem worse. Or number three, make huge strides towards doing something extreme until we can figure something out.
I mean, I'd personally choose an option that isn't one of those things. That's what I would do.
So
like,
for me,
personally, I think you can do something other than those three. I can tell you what I would do.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
What I would do is I would just be like, look, like, I would say, right, that I wouldn't do a ban on a particular ethnicity, a particular group or race or anything like that. I would figure out patterns between past terrorists, people acting sketchy, psychological habits, right? I don't know what those are. I'm completely uneducated on what a terrorist acts like when they're about to do a terrorist attack. Hopefully, someone knows something on that. And then make that what you look for, right? I think it's kind of, I mean, I think it is slightly racist to just be like, hey, like Muslims, you did 9/11, so Muslims, we got to ban you because.
But that wasn't the issue. He wasn't banning Muslims because of 9/11. He was banning Muslims because all of the terrorist threats were coming from Muslim terrorists.
Sure, whatever.
Right.
So like terrorism mostly comes from Muslims. I agree. Right. But I mean, it's kind of like saying, I don't know, in my opinion, that's like the same argument you could give, like, why don't we stop? I mean, technically Black people commit more crimes in America. That's just a fact, right? So why don't we, whenever we see a Black person, stop them just because they're Black? You know, I feel like that's the same argument. Because it's true.
Not necessarily.
It is true that Black people disproportionately commit more crimes than white people. But why? I mean, I guess like in my head, those two things would be the same. That would be like if they are disproportionately doing it, so we should just stop. So, anyways, in my head, that's the same reasoning. That's what it feels like.
Let me go to a different side of the question, right? If you are the commander in chief of the United States Armed Forces, your responsibility is with protecting the nation, and the threat is coming from Muslim nations. Are all Muslims terrorists?
No.
But were most terrorists Muslims?
Yeah.
At this particular time. So do Muslims understand that just because they're Muslim, they're not terrorists?
They understand it.
They understand that. So the white people who are virtue signaling against racism, cool. If I'm the commander in chief of the United States Armed Forces, I got to ask myself, am I willing to risk people not liking me for keeping people alive? Because doing so might require me making a decision that looks bad. And I think the answer should be yes. Now, does that mean that it was the right decision to do a Muslim ban? I have no idea because I don't understand the full context of the situation. So I'm not going to say he did or did not make the right decision. What I do know is that I am being emotional and I'm pandering to the wrong party if I recognize that my only threat is from Muslim terrorists, but I'm going to ignore it because banning Muslims is going to offend somebody. I'm focused on the wrong thing.
So here's the issue in my head, though, Keanu. There are white terrorists. It's not like every single terrorist is Muslim, right? So then you're not really solving the problem fully. You know what I mean? Like you're not really getting to the crux of what you actually need to be doing to be solving terrorism, don't you think? Like wouldn't the right thing to do?
That wasn't a terrorist solution. He wasn't trying to solve terrorism. If I recall correctly, now we're both trying to go off of memory, so we could both be wrong in our recollection of this.
There are clips. Gianmarco, bring up some clips of Trump talking about the Muslim ban in 2016.
Here's the thing. I don't think he was trying to solve terrorism with that. I think he was trying to address a very acute, time-sensitive problem, not solve terrorism, right? It was a very specific, acute threat that was taking place. I don't know what was going on surrounding that. I don't. I genuinely don't. I also don't know whether or not that was the right tactical decision from a military standpoint, right? And I would argue that neither one of us nor any news person who commented on this topic was qualified to comment on the military tactical benefits of that decision, right? We can give our opinions from the outside. Here's my point, though, bro. What I can say, my opinion, your question, is that racist? If the threat is coming from a Muslim nation or a Chinese nation or a Puerto Rican island, or I don't care. If the threat is coming, My dad, my grandparents were born in Puerto Rico. If you told me there was a terrorist threat coming from the island of Puerto Rico, there was this huge background, a bunch of islands, a bunch of Puerto Ricans were doing all this stuff. We got 20 years. They blew up a building. If we got 20 years worth of track record, and I got a bunch of FBI information coming in saying Puerto Ricans are coming in, Puerto Ricans are coming in, and the president says, yeah, we're doing a ban on Puerto Ricans right now. I'm not going to become 5 years old, getting my feelings and say, that's racist. You shouldn't ban people, or you should ban it. Everybody wasn't the threat. Puerto Ricans were the threat, bro. Like, get out.
It's a little different, though. It would be more like if he said no more Latinos, but the threat was just coming from Puerto Rico. Do you get what I mean? Where it's like, okay, hold on. Where exactly is the threat coming from? Right? How are we deciding where the threat is coming from?
That's a fantastic point, but it actually serves your point less well. And here's why. That actually kind of confirms Trump's decision in this particular argument, because your example is a good one. But your example allows for the distinction between the two. So if he were to say all Latinos, then it's very simple to differentiate. No, sir, Mexicans weren't the problem. Venezuelans weren't the problems. Ecuadorians weren't the problems. Colombians weren't the problem. Puerto Ricans were the problem. Just focus on Puerto Ricans. He couldn't do that. Terrorists were sneaking in with regular Muslim people. There was no way to distinguish. It's not like there was a terrorist threat coming from one country or one particular people group. That terrorists who were Muslim were sneaking in with all of the regular, completely normal, fantastic Muslim people. They were disguising themselves with them. There was no way. To your point, a fantastic way would be to do background checks or all these different things. We didn't have the infrastructure for that. So in that particular example, if you don't know how to vet, do you let everybody in so you don't offend people? If there's no other vetting process, do you let everybody in so you don't offend people, or do you block everybody until you can get a vetting process in place?
I feel like we did have a vetting process. I mean, like TSA, maybe you think TSA is dog shit, but I feel like I would have trouble bringing on a bomb, right? You know what I mean? Do you think TSA is able to prevent, like sometimes they make mistakes, but aren't en masse, don't they prevent terrorism on like airplanes? Like I feel like that's a decent vetting process, you know? That's how I think about it in my head, is like to ban all Muslims from being able to come to the country.
So you're willing to put Americans at risk, don't risk offending people?
Well, it's not about a risk of offending people. It's about actually getting it right. Like you want to act, what you want to do is actually prevent terrorism. Because Keanu, like, let's go, because that's what his stated goal is to prevent terrorism. Correct? That we agree on that, right?
To be clear, we're having a hypothetical situation based on what we remember, but yes.
Well, like I'm almost 95% sure that's why he did the Muslim. He said he was going to do the Muslim ban, right?
Okay.
I'm like almost 100% sure. I don't think there's any other reason to do a Muslim ban unless he's like purely racist and is like, I just don't like turbans, you know, like the only way to, that's the only possible answer. I'm almost positive that's the reason he stated, right? The thing that worries me with a policy like that is ignoring the possibility of terrorism from other places. If you just do a blanket Muslim ban, and you're preventing tons of fine and good Muslims from being able to come to the country, right, based off their ethnicity. In my head, I just think it's a bad policy. I think you could do things that are a lot better that actually prevent.
Because you bring up the TSA. The assumption is that there are people that are coming into the country are bringing their bomb supplies with them in their carry-on. That's not how that works, bro. The 9/11 people were here for a long time as normal citizens, right? These people are going to be coming into the country.
Then it's an issue anyway. If they're citizens, that's an issue anyway. You mean American citizens, or what do you mean by that?
No. I'm saying they were here living among Americans like normal people for a long time. So my point is this, right? I'd love to hear. Because if the question is, now, obviously this is hypothetical because we don't remember the facts specifically, but if the question is is it racist to ban all Muslims during a scenario where there is a huge threat from Muslim terrorists? I guess my question is, you're saying for the sake of not offending anybody, let's not ban everybody. There's got to be a better way. Okay, my question to you is, what's the better way? 2, how long does it take to deploy that better way? 3, is it worth however long it takes to get that up and running to let however many people come into the country while they're figuring it out? Because the reality is over the next 2 weeks, we could have 10 people per day. I could, if you're running a terrorist organization, you could have 10 to 20 terrorists per day fly from different countries into the United States every day for 2 weeks, right? Within a week's,
okay, hold on.
People in the country, right?
It's pretty hard. Like, it is pretty hard to visit America from Pakistan, right? Like, it's very hard to do anyways, right? I would say that it's just not the right way to do it. Like, I just think it's the wrong way to do it. I think you would admit, Keanu, and it's an insanely small proportion of Muslims that are terrorists, right? Like, insanely small. Like, we're talking like 1 out of...
I have no idea. I have no idea what the ratios are. Obviously, not all Muslims are terrorists.
I'm pretty sure it's insanely small. Like, I think it's like 1 out of every 100,000 or something like that. Right?
I mean, you can also argue that there's probably terrorists in every religion, right?
Yeah. Right. So, okay, Pew Research Center. Hold on, let's just find this out. This is 2017, so this might be better for what he was talking about back then. So, hold on. This is from 2017. Okay. That doesn't tell me how many are terrorists. All right, this is completely useless. We'll have to find that data later. I'm almost positive it's an insanely small amount. Otherwise, like, we'd be dealing with way more fucking issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's neither here. You're like, Malcolm's made a couple fair.
No, you don't think it's like you think it's pretty fucking small proportion, no? Like, I don't.
Yeah, I don't imagine it's
close, right? So I don't. In my head, I'm pretty damn sure it's a small proportion. Otherwise, those countries just wouldn't work, right? Like, you can't like be run by terrorists or if everyone believes in terrorism. So in my head, what it is you're banning people for the wrong reasons. Like, I think a better way to do it would be have what we already have, which is an insanely hard visa process, right? Where you are background checked. I'm like, and again, I'm American, so I don't remember what
there's 20 million people who entered the country in the last 4 years without a visa, bro. Like, again, so like being able to say that.
Okay. Are we talking about illegal immigrants right now, or are we talking about specifically people visiting from these countries?
I'm talking about people who have illegally entered the United States. 21.
Okay, well, now we're talking about illegal immigration. We're talking somebody could illegally come to the country no matter what. We're talking about legally, can they come to the country right now, right? So I think because what you would do if you're actually concerned about terrorism is every single country, you'd have the same process for finding someone who potentially could be a terrorist, right? Like, what are the background checks? What do we know about them, right? What can they prove about their family history? All of that type of stuff. I don't know enough about terrorism to make it happen, but I just feel like it's slightly racist. Like, it's the wrong way to do it. Like, in my head, right? For instance, Kihano, what in your head is the difference between my example of pulling over black people more because they commit more crimes disproportionately versus, like, what's the difference in that, right? Versus the Muslim ban in your head? Because those feel like the same thing to me, and logically in my head, I think they're the same. Unless you can explain to me why.
Repeat the question. I didn't catch. I don't understand.
In my head, right? You could use the same. So the argument you're making right now is, look, we have terrorism coming from these countries, right? From Muslim countries. So we don't know how many there are, right? We know that it's more than other countries. So I think it's a good idea to ban travel from these countries to America, right? That's your argument. That's more or less Trump's argument, correct?
Well, I would say that we got to emphasize the temporary, right? Like it wasn't a permanent ban because this is our solution. It was we have an acute problem. We have an impending threat. There is something serious that's about to happen. There's a hurricane that's on the coast of Miami. You're not going every single day for the rest of your life and you're picking up sandbags. But for the couple of weeks leading up, you're getting sandbags, you're buying extra cans of green beans, right? You're doing things that are outside of the normal to prepare against an impending threat. This is a temporary solution for that. I think under that premise, yeah, I think if there is an impending threat that you don't know the timeline of and you can't stop because the problem's already started, there is logic in doing what could be somewhat extreme or less than normal solutions, because it's not a normal situation. This isn't how you plan for a long term. This isn't an appropriate 20-year plan to fix the immigration process and protect. No, that's not the right solution for that. But if the hurricane's a week away, you better stock up on some green beans, and don't be surprised when the green bean shelf is empty at the grocery store, when there's no more toilet paper. Why? Because this is a temporary emergency situation. I think that was the premise of the decision. Under that premise, I agree with that. I don't agree with that's a long-term, a functional long-term solution.
I mean, do you think, like, okay, so solving terrorism in the Middle East is going to take generations, right? Like, I guess I don't understand how it could possibly be temporary. Like, do you get what I'm trying? What I'm confused by?
There were impending threats. Like, here's something that we are hearing. We have chatter from agencies that keep their eye out for this. He wasn't through a terrorist attack.
No, he wasn't president yet. He wasn't talking to agencies. He didn't know anything yet. This was during his campaign. He had never been president yet when he was talking about this. He was just talking about generally, there's a lot of terrorism coming from Muslims, right? Like, he wasn't talking about like a specific terrorist threat he knew about.
Okay, he was just talking about. Did he do a Muslim ban?
He didn't end up doing a Muslim ban, which is like kind of interesting because he can't constitutionally do it because he knew that the Supreme Court would have struck it down. He just banned it from every single Muslim, or a lot of the Muslim countries, right? I think there were a few exceptions. I think Saudi Arabia was accepted because they give us a lot of fucking oil, right? So yeah, that's what he ended up doing. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, just so we're clear, like, I'm looking at the information and I don't remember this. This is probably not great that we're talking about something that was older, but it wasn't just against Muslims. It was Venezuela was on the list. North Korea was on this list.
No, but he talked about a Muslim ban. Like, that's what he talked about in his campaign, right? What he ended up doing once he was president wasn't a Muslim ban. But this all started with, was it fair to call Trump a racist during that campaign? I think it's sort of fair. I in my head, that's fair from what he said about Muslim bans. We could analyze the rapist comment. Like, I think the way he said that, it sounded slightly racist. Like, Mexico is not sending its best, right? I don't know how.
But you think that's a racist comment? Mexico's not sending its best?
Well, first off, Mexico's sending. Mexicans are just coming here. It's not like the Mexican government is sending people here. Or do you believe that?
That you know of.
I have seen no evidence for that. The Mexican government is sending people.
Have you looked for evidence that people...
Well, I mean, again, this is from my personal experience. I know illegal immigrants, right? Like, I have talked to illegal immigrants in my life in California, right? Mm-hmm. Every single one came to America to make a better life for themselves, right? That's anecdotal.
That's a horrible sample size. Yeah, it's
anecdotal. I agree. It's anecdotal, but you can find data, for instance, that like the vast majority of, like, for instance, illegal immigrants, illegal immigrants, and the last time I looked this up was in 2020, committed less crime than normal American citizens. As of like when I looked that up, which was 2020, I remember.
Are these like per capita numbers? Are these like generalized?
No, proportionally.
Yeah. Have you looked at the recent numbers?
They know if they get caught, they'd be deported immediately, right? I can find these numbers for you. I'd have to look it up again. I saw this like 4 years ago. I haven't gotten updated numbers on this.
Immigrants don't get deported when they get caught breaking laws. They haven't for years. They haven't, at least in this administration. Right? Here's the thing. Here's what I
haven't looked this up since Biden. I know under Obama, because Obama deported more illegal immigrants than anyone else, any other president living, that if you got caught for a crime, you got deported. I assume it was the same under Trump, and I'm pretty sure I remember it under Trump too. It'd be really weird if he was releasing people. And I don't know what's been happening with Joe Biden. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna front. The last time I saw that statistic was in 2020, probably.
Malcolm, do you remember if Malcolm, do you remember if that ban went through, or was it just proposed? I'd be interested in seeing how that plays out. So to summarize that point, simple question, right? Because I would say, based on my obvious limited experience in this topic, if I'm in a position of leadership and I recognize that there is a massive pending, right, potential short-term threat against specific nations, and the safest thing to do is to restrict travel from those nations for a period of time until we can sort out the problem, I think that that's you being willing to do what's right, even if people don't like it. That's not racist. That's not racist.
But he didn't say what you said, though. You know that, right?
What did he say?
He said, I want to do a ban on all Muslims, on all Muslim countries. On Muslims, I'm pretty sure. Let's just find what he actually brought. He didn't say how long. He said something like, until we can figure out what's going on, which who the fuck knows what that means.
About 90 days from all the research that Malcolm has personally.
Trump Muslim ban. Let's just look it up, because it's been a while for me.
Here's my point, right? You're comfortable not remembering this, but assuming that your perspective of the fact that it was racist is fake.
Can we just watch it? Let's just watch it right now.
Can't hear it, bro.
Can you hear me?
You got to share your screen, or you got to share the specific tab, dog.
Hold on. Sorry. Okay. You can hear it?
It's not playing.
Can you hear this?
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on. We have no choice. We have no choice.
Okay. So, I mean, that's a 30-second clip, right? Maybe there's somehow more context to that. But
everybody is saying 90 days. Yvonne just looked it up, and it was about 90 days. So the common news out there was that it was a 90-day proposed ban.
It was 90-day ban. What do you mean by 90 days? So that like Muslims couldn't get in for 90 days and that was it? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think if we use the clip that you said, deductive reasoning, and the 90-day thing that most people are finding, the proposal is for 90 days.
Can someone bring that up? As of that clip didn't say 90 days. That clip said until they can figure out whatever the hell is going on. I don't know what that means, right? If somebody bring up something about this 90 days, like, does anyone have anything
Here's the
on
thing.
this? 90-day Trump.
You said the clip was politics, right? Here's the thing, bro. You don't need proof for you to assume that it was indefinite, but you need proof to believe that it was 90 days.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Wait, hold on. I believe you guys. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not sure, right?
Wikipedia, on Wikipedia, bro. Wikipedia. Travel ban for people, 7 majority companies for 90 days. Travel ban, Wikipedia. There it is, 90 days. So it was a 90-day travel ban. So the proposition was, we have a problem. It's dangerous. People are in a position of getting killed. We're on the step of having another 9/11 level attack on the United States. We don't know what's going on. The current administration is not doing anything about it. As a result, I propose a 90-day travel ban from the countries most likely to have Muslim terrorists come in through those borders, and it's going to be for 90 days for us to figure out what's going on. What about that is racist?
Okay, so that isn't, I wouldn't say is necessarily racist, but what he said was racist. So then you have to do something that's different.
No. You can't misinterpret his intentions, and then when you realize that his plan wasn't racist, yeah, but the way you said it was.
Listen to me. The way he said it was racist, and also what he ended up doing was not racist. I can say both of those things. I don't know why you think that's not possible. You can pass a policy that doesn't end up being racist, but what you said was racist, right? I'm not saying he's racist. To be clear, hold on, wait, real quick. Let me finish. To be clear, I don't know if Donald Trump is a racist or not. He's never done anything that definitively proves to me that he's a racist or, you know, Islamophobic or whatever, right? He hasn't done anything that's proved that to me. Where this all started was like during that campaign, why were people going so crazy over him being a racist? They saw clips like that. He didn't really specify that it was going to be from specific countries and only for 90 days.
He did though.
Where? In the campaign? Show me. That's him doing it after he got elected, right? He changed what he said he would do.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You said what he said was racist. Are you referring to that clip?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So can we please listen to this clip? Because I want to re-listen to it from the lens of your context now. I would love to hear, I would genuinely, and guys, I'm asking everybody in the chat that sees this, please do me the favor, when we rewatch this clip, Jonah, I'd like you to show me what about this is racist. And I would love anybody else to point this out to me. Because
what he ended up doing, you realize that, right? I'm saying just the clip right now. Is that what you're saying?
You said that he said what he said was racist, and you were referring to this. So I want to know what about this is racist.
You want me to play the clip again?
No. I want to listen. I want to listen to it again because when I heard it the first time, nothing jumped out at me as racist. And I'm now going to be listening for something racist. Please show me what I miss if I don't catch it. But guys, in the chat, right? This is how we challenge ourselves to look from different perspectives. I challenge all of you guys to listen from Jonah's perspective and see if you can hear what we're racist here.
I don't think anyone's going to be able to do it, but okay.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on. We have no choice. We have no choice.
All right, bro. Promise you, being as objective as possible. I hear zero racism there, bro. Tell me what I'm missing. Guys,
okay. First off, we're getting really hypothetical here right now. I want you guys to understand my argument is what he said there was racist, but what he ended up doing was not racist, right? Now, if you want to argue that
I'm not talking about,
you're talking about just that clip.
In this clip, show me what was racist, because you are standing your ground.
So he is banning all Muslims from entering the country.
Okay.
If you're banning in this clip, he doesn't say why, right? If you're banning, imagine if just from that clip he was said, from this day forward, we are banning all Jews from entering this country until we can find out what the hell is going on. How would you feel about that statement? Just replace Jews with Muslims in there. Or how about like Christians? How would you feel about that statement then?
So it sounds like Sip's on your side here.
Islamophobic, whatever, dude. Yes, I understand Islam's not a race. Like, I mean, like,
no. But here's the thing. Either way, we'll stick for the sake of language. We can call it racism, right? Yvonne says you're reaching to defend your point. I think you are. However, but here's the thing, bro. You have not pointed out.
Talking about the clip though. Okay. Anyways, whatever. Like, okay, so Keanu. Okay, you say I'm reaching, but like, what if that had said, we need to do a ban on all Jews from coming into this country, right?
If Jewish people are the ones that are guilty of the exact same things, if Christians, if
you're just stereotyping
people, I don't really care, bro. Puerto Ricans, right? I don't care who you're.
I mean, like,
if there is a specific group of people who have a 20+ year track record of doing that, and that you're. But here's my point, bro. Regardless of who he's talking,
I don't see how that's different than like. I mean, I honestly don't see how that's different than just being like, look, like it is statistically true that black people commit more crimes.
You are deflecting like this is a tennis match.
Okay, I won't bring up an analogy. Fine, I won't bring up an analogy. Okay, the issue is that the vast majority of Muslims aren't terrorists. So what you're doing is you're banning a ton of Muslims who have no reason to be banned other than you're linking.
You have literally strawmanned your way back to a different argument to try to. We've already established why his plan was viable.
I'm just talking about the clip.
Exactly.
You want to talk about the clip, or do you want to talk about what he did?
You just talked about the plan. You were just explaining to me that his plan was bad because not all racists or Muslims are terrorists. Fine, that's a different argument, which you already agreed was a viable one. This clip. What about this clip is racist? Here's my point, Jonah, and hear me out. I'm going to hold on. Because it's not racist, bro. Here's my point. This is my point.
Okay.
This is where you are literally playing out the psychological warfare that took place 8 years ago, and are literally a victim of it, and you can't see it, bro. This is my point. You are oblivious to the fact that you're being manipulated to say something that doesn't have logic because you are more.
Okay, hold on, stop. It has logic. It has logic. I'm sorry. There is a logic to it. Like, I'm sorry if you don't see the logic.
I just want to finish.
That was a little bit insulting, but go on. That was a little insulting.
I don't mean to be insulting, Jonah. I genuinely do not mean to be insulting. I say this to you, just to be clear. I say this to you out loud because of the massive amounts of respect I have for your intelligence.
Sure.
If I thought you were an unintelligent person, I would quietly change the subject and realize that you're not capable of understanding what's happening here, right? Sip, 0% of what you said in this comment makes any sense, brother. Like, I respectfully, it doesn't make any sense because for 100 reasons. But like, that's a different topic. I don't want to get off track. Here's my point, Jonah. And I mean this respectfully, bro, because I do respect your intelligence. The fact that you can listen to that clip and find racism tells me that you are not objectively listening to the clip and saying, so this goes back to what we discussed.
What? I'm sorry. That's okay. Go on. I'm sorry. That's just kind of crazy, though. Like, that, what you're saying sounds crazy to me. Nobody can look, first off, politics isn't objective ever, right? When somebody becomes a politician, nobody can look at what they say objectively. I don't know if you agree with that. What?
Two in the chat if you don't think I'm ever going to get this question out. One in the chat if you think I'll get the question out. Go ahead. We talk about politics now. Go ahead, Joe.
No, what's your question? Say the question.
Here's my question, bro. The purpose of our original plan for this podcast today, before all kinds of stuff happened, was that we were going to discuss how we make decisions. I believe that it is responsible to use objective, independent thought to make decisions. If you approach things with a preconceived, you already have your mind made up about what's true about a situation, it doesn't matter what information is going to be presented to you because you're going to filter the information to serve your points of view. If your goal is to prove yourself right, you can prove yourself right in anything. Pedophiles could go online and justify their lifestyle. People who are criminals, who do horrible things, could find logic and arguments to justify their lifestyle. So being able to prove something as right based on the evidence, or being able to say, well, look, obvious isn't enough. You have to, in my opinion, if you want to find truth, be willing to lay down your preconceived ideas, your bias, your confirmation bias at the door, and say, I am going to leave my bias at the door, listen to this independently for what it is, and then make the decision. This is my fantastic point, Julie, and I'll touch on that after Jonah responds to this, right? This is my point, Jonah, right? When you listen to that comment, that video, here's what I hear. One, he made generalized statements. Zero, in my opinion, 0%, not 0.5, not 0.2, not 0.1, 0% of that clip has any implication of racism in and of itself. The only way you can confirm racism based on that clip is to find extra information that says what he meant by this clip, which fully lacks context, is supported by these things which show racism. However, if you go and find the context and the context states the opposite, then you have to accept, as much as I could have seen that clip, which does not have context, which means that it's inherently neutral, went left because he now says the bunch of racist stuff. He didn't, though. His policy clearly showed what his intent was, and his intent was to secure the safety of the nation for a brief period of time so that the security could be established and they can come up with a better plan moving forward.
What's the question?
My question is, if you're looking at that objectively, I don't see racism. So you didn't want to include the policy, which his policy disproves racism.
I didn't want to include it. That's not what I said.
But you asked to separate them. So I separated them. When you include his policy disproves racism. It doesn't confirm racism. So you're telling me that clip in and of itself proves racism. Where?
Wait, hold on. You realize you added all the context, right? What I was doing was I was showing, hey, if we didn't know his policy, because he didn't release his policy until he already was president, right? This clip was from when he was campaigning, and then his policy came when he was actually president. I don't know if you know that. That I actually do remember. So that clip in and of itself, Quijano, what you're saying, you're the one adding all the context to the clip, right?
Because you didn't. You were comfortable.
I said that this clip in and of itself is racist. Like, if you took the clip in and of itself and you didn't add context, then it's racism.
No,
that's what I said.
That clip in and of itself has no implication. There is nothing inherently racist about it. Nothing.
You're banning. Just the clip says you're banning Muslims straight up. You don't give a reason why at all, right?
Which is exactly why you can't conclude whether or not it's racist. That's my point. You are unable to conclude with that clip by itself.
Okay, well, so like, I mean, I don't know how to do this other than give you a metaphor, which this is like, if you don't agree with me, like, I could give you metaphors and you're just going to say they're bad metaphors, and I don't really know how to go anywhere from here. In my opinion, here's what I think, actually, in the full context of everything. I think that clip in and of itself is racist. I don't know how you don't see that. When you say I'm going to ban Muslims and then I don't say the reason why, right? I don't say the reason why at all. Then I'm going to assume that the reason is because they're Muslim, right? If you're not going to say the reason why, just in the same way, hold on, you got to talk, let me talk. Just in the same way that if I say in my restaurant store, no blacks allowed, I ban all black people, I could assume that there's a logical reason behind it, but I'm probably going to assume it's racist. technically you are right. There is a possibility that I'm banning all black people from my store for a non-racist reason.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't have the context of, hey, the actual policy is going to end up being X, then no, on the face of it, it seems racist, which is why media people were calling him racist, right? In my opinion. Now, is he actually racist? That's what you actually want to know. In terms of his policy, I think his policy makes where he actually ended up doing, because actions in the end speak louder than words, was not racist. I don't think in and of itself that's racist. He banned certain countries. He didn't actually ban all Muslims. He didn't actually end up banning all Muslims. He didn't say, I'm going to ban Muslims from Europe, a country where terrorism doesn't come from, right? He only ended up banning the specific countries where there's a lot of terrorism. So because of his actions, he didn't end up being racist, but what he said in that clip was racist. And I don't really see, I don't see how that's any different than saying I'm going to ban all black people from my store. And unless I give the context, which at least from this clip, maybe there was context given somewhere else, but as of that clip, and you can say it was clipped out of context, whatever, right? But that in and of itself is racist. It's the same thing as saying I'm going to ban all black people from my store, right? I'm going to assume it's racist unless you give me the context, right? That's all I'm saying. And I think that's all the reason why the media was going crazy over him, right? I actually there's nothing that I can say that would prove that Donald Trump is racist. I don't know if he's racist or not. I see some evidence that would suggest that he's not racist. And I see some evidence to suggest that it's a possibility. I lean towards probably not racist, personally, based on his actions and stuff like that. I don't think that's really his problem. So that's my total opinion. So anyway, so that's my entire opinion. I just think the media was going off of clips that are just so, and this was to your point last week. How could that is criminally bad. If you actually meant it to be, I want to ban from specific countries where there's a lot of terrorism happening, and just stating a straight Muslim ban instead of just being like, no, I want to ban Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran. There's tons of terrorism coming from these places, so I'm going to ban from these places. That would not be racist at all, and that'd be completely a reasonable way of saying it, right?
Here's my question to you, right?
So that's how I feel about it anyways.
Once again, now we're getting back to my point from last week, which is his communication style, and you're judging him by his communication style, not by his intent or his words, right? So, Sip,
I think it's purposeful. That's the issue. I think he knows how it comes off. I don't think he's stupid. I think he's smart enough to know that I don't take that as like nice. I agree with that.
I don't think that's the case at all, right? But I think he's capable. I don't think that's what he does. This is my opinion. Sip, to your point, literally why we do this podcast, bro. I appreciate you recognize that. Literally why we do this today. As you can tell, me and Jonah very drastically disagree on most of this stuff. So
Obama built the cages. You're right. Or Joe Biden. I forget.
No. It was George Bush, Senior, I believe.
Oh yeah, go fuck yourself. It was George Bush. Okay, it was a Republican.
And Obama.
I don't know who built the fucking cages.
Here's the thing, Jonah. Let me ask you a question. Jonah.
Do we want to actually get to the assassination attempt? We're already an hour.
This is literally how I want to go into that thing, right? So you made your point, and let's just go off of your point. I won't refute that point anymore.
Okay.
You said that without context, that statement sounds racist. Once you provide the context, his actions no longer sound racist. Okay, let's just go with that. Here's my question to you. Before we get the context of proof, is it responsible or irresponsible to do a full-on, months-long media blitz blasting somebody for something as severe as being racist, in so much that you paint an entire picture about them, all because of clips that don't have context? When the rubber meets the road, his actions demonstrate that he was, in fact, not making a racist decision. Is it responsible or irresponsible to accuse him of that in front of the whole world, in so much to influence people's opinions on him so effectively that 4 years later, 8 years later, people are still convinced he's racist without context? And then when they see it, they're like, oh crap, well, maybe he wasn't. How many more examples exist for this exact reason?
I would say ideally what the media would do is be like, hey, what he said just from this clip sounds super racist. Mr. Trump, what did you mean? Could you clarify, please? Because right now that sounds racist, right? What you just said sounds racist. Mr. Trump, could you please clarify? Now, I don't remember if they did that or didn't do that, to be honest. I just don't. If what they did was they didn't clarify, they didn't want clarification, they didn't give a fuck, and they just went with the story just because, then yeah, that's irresponsible. Theoretically, what they should do is be like, Mr. Trump, what you just said without any context sounds super racist. Can you please explain what you mean? Like, do you mean Muslims from Britain? Do you mean like blah, 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 right? And then also, Trump has to do better at clarifying, because I just don't believe he's that stupid. I think he's smart enough to know why you would say it like that. I think he's smart enough to know you would say it like that in order to try to get racists to vote for you. That's my personal opinion. Now, I can't prove that opinion. There's no way I could ever show you definitively that that's true, because now we're talking about Trump's inner psychological mind. I just think he's insanely smart. I think he's not a dumb person. And I think a smart person would know how someone would take that statement without any context whatsoever.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, Jonah. This is something that I appreciate that answer. I actually agree with that answer. Here's the thing. To Julie's point, that's never going to happen, at least not for him. That does happen with Joe Biden. That does happen with Kamala Harris. They do give her the opportunity. Even when they do throw a hardball question, which is rare, it is always softened on either side to give an opportunity for context and for clarity. That is not afforded to Donald Trump. It never has been. To your point, to even further make this worse, Jonah, not only should what you're doing be done, and then without that, should they not error that information because they didn't have a chance to provide context? Here's what's worse. If you go back and listen to a lot of those full interviews, he provided the context in the same meeting. They just clipped out the part that sounded racist.
Like, and we just find
that? It's happened a million. But here's the point. Like, for the sake of this podcast, we can find substantiation for that.
They've done it a million times. Shouldn't it be pretty easy? Trump providing context on the Muslim ban.
No, hold on. This is how we get off on these. Can we circle back to what's happened to this last week? We can circle back to that. What I can tell you is I found them when it came to the racist stuff about the Mexicans sending their worst. You use that as an example. That would be a fantastic example. When you listen to his context, he's referring to the cartels sending over drug and human traffickers. That's what he was saying. The cartels are sending their worst. Mexico, the cartels in specific context, is sending their worst. Anybody who listened to that in context knew that in those particular scenarios, he was not saying all Mexicans are racist. What he was saying is that the cartels and the people in power in Mexico are sending their worst. They're sending rapists, drug and human traffickers, which we know is true. This is a factual thing that was and is still happening. And the cartel was sending their worst. He was specifically talking about drug and human trafficking, a very big issue that he ran on. All the media translated was the racist wants the wall because he doesn't like immigrants. And so they clipped all of his statements where he was clearly talking about coyotes, talking about cartel, talking about drug and human trafficking. He clearly said that, but all they extracted from the news clips was, oh, they're going to send their worst.
You can clearly say it was cartels. He didn't say are you saying before that clip? He said that? In the clip, he didn't say it's clearly cartels, right? Are you talking about before the clip or after the clip?
Okay, hold on. We'll play a clip. Yvonne found
like I think that clip, by the way, just FYI, because I've rewatched the clip a couple of times just throughout since he said it.
Hold on. Here, well, I'll share this. Does this clarify that? Does this clarify this point? The clip for clarify when he says that they're talking about the cartels and stuff like that. Okay, look, just so we're clear, David Stutton, here we go.
You're sharing your screen?
Yep.
Mexico sends its people. They're not sending their best. It's coming from more than Mexico. They're bringing drugs.
Traffickers are busier than ever. Hundreds of pounds of meth and cocaine hidden inside rocks being transported across the border. 300 pounds seized.
$100,000 worth of liquid meth.
The amount of fentanyl seized so far is enough to kill over 30 million people.
Where's it being produced?
The U.S.-Mexico border.
They're bringing crime.
Lake and Riley, her accused killer, came to the U.S. illegally from Venezuela.
An illegal immigrant who killed 19-year-old Adrian Sophia Exum.
The illegal immigrant who killed 5 people, including a 9-year-old child.
The man police believe killed 16-year-old cheerleader Lisbeth Medina Rafael Gouveia Romero, who they say is undocumented.
He is in the country illegally when he murdered that officer. The illegal immigrant now accused of killing a mother and son while driving drunk.
They're rapists.
An undocumented immigrant convicted of rape who illegally tried to re-enter the country. A pair of migrants have been arrested in a suburban Buffalo area accused of sex crimes.
An 18-year-old illegal immigrant on a rape charge in Hicksville, Ohio, and authorities say was in the U.S. illegally, is now being held without bond after being charged with rape and trafficking.
We had the safest border ever, and now we have the worst border ever. And I mean anywhere. There's never been a border like this ever in the world.
Okay, but like you realize those were all just news reporters.
Yeah, so what those were is clips confirming that the statements that he made were in fact accurate. So when he says that there's rapists coming over, that was not an inaccurate statement. Now, that was not the point I was making. That was a separate point. That was a separate point that I still think stands for what I'm saying. But in these situations, what do you mean? That was a separate point. So Yvonne brought me a clip in addition to the that I was making, right? So this is a separate point. Right, Yvonne just brought this. I didn't watch this clip in advance, but if you go back, let's not do it now. I can go and find it afterwards. Jamarco, if you find one that refers to specifically.
Can I just clarify what you're saying? I just want to make sure I understood what your claim was, not from the clip. Your claim was earlier in that speech or later in that speech, he clarified that he was talking about the cartel. Is that what you're saying? Or are you not saying that? Okay.
He was talking about cartels. Correct. He was talking about cartels or specific people, specific crimes that were committed by people who were here illegally. He was not saying all Mexicans. There was never that implication. If you watch the full press conferences, if you watch the full things, it's pretty obvious that he is generalizing. But here's my point. So let's circle back to this. This is whether we confirm this or not, which we can go back and confirm this because we're talking about stuff that happened 8 years ago. Here's my point. What you're doing, Jonah, and I'm unfortunately I'm pointing to you as a representative of the whole left, right?
I said this statement. I said a few weeks ago that everyone over 60 is inherently racist.
I don't think you said it. I don't know who said it. Somebody said it. I remember somebody said this.
I don't think everyone over 60 is racist. I don't think that.
Here's the point, bro.
Maybe I said that. I don't remember.
When we ask questions about what's happening, we don't know what's going on. Is there something nefarious or something conspiratorial going on in the background? Possibly, probably. But here, let's assume that there's nothing nefarious. Let's assume that it's just people who got a little bit too emotional. This is why, Jonah, I think, and I'm glad that you at least agree with that it's irresponsible to clip someone out of context and allow that lack of context to become the narrative. And that's what the left's done entirely against Donald Trump.
You don't think conservatives do that with liberals?
I just
think that
politicians do it in general, but I think those become short-term stories for a specific news cycle or a specific election, and then we move on.
Okay.
This has been a concerted effort to paint this as the image of Donald Trump forever. Here's the problem. Just when you grossly generalize without specific context, it makes it easy to demonize everybody, including people like Julie, right? Who I don't think Julie is inherently racist. I don't think necessarily everybody over 60 is inherently racist. But the narrative now, through many people,
I didn't say that everyone over 60 is racist. What did I say? I might have said something like everyone over 60 is just a little racist. Maybe I said that. Sorry, I didn't really mean it like that. I kind of meant it more just like, how do I say it? Not over 60. I'd say like over 80, over 90. I feel like they were just like not even racist idea. I don't know. Like, sorry if I said that. I don't remember saying.
Here's the point, Jonah. But here's the point, Jonah. Like, I don't know that Jonah, that Julie thinks you're an inherently horrible person. I certainly don't, right? Here's the point, bro. This is the problem with getting too comfortable, grossly generalizing and saying, oh, yeah, well, obviously, listen to that. That's obviously racist. And I don't need to hear the context until I hear proven otherwise. You're racist, right?
You know, I didn't say that, though, right?
That's ignorance. That's ignorant. That is literally the definition of what's happening in this country today. Here's the thing. If that's true, which I think most people agree that it is, then that is exactly why you get people so radically emotionally charged that you'll go to Trump rallies and you have these people with their purple and pink hair screaming at the top of their lungs, or excuse me, at Biden rallies or Harris rallies. And they're screaming at the top of their lungs, physically assaulting somebody who's wearing a Trump t-shirt. Like, Jonah, you know yourself to be a decent human being. If you showed up wearing a Trump Vance t-shirt to a Harris campaign, what do you think the mathematical likelihood is of you getting at least screamed at or maybe even physically assaulted?
I truly have no idea.
Would you say I have no around
idea.
50%?
I don't know. Like, because I want to answer honestly. I just don't know.
That's fair.
I don't know what would happen. I have no clue.
I don't know either. From all of the clips that I've seen, which obviously these are isolated incidents, this is not a fair sample size. All of the clips that I've seen online, there have been dozens of people, maybe more, who have gone to Harris rallies and then they've gone to Trump rallies wearing opposite parties' apparel. Almost never does somebody get assaulted or attacked at a Trump rally wearing Harris stuff. Almost never. Almost 100% of the time, they get physically assaulted at a Harris rally. Now, physically assaulted might just mean they get pushed or they get a drink thrown at them or they get something spilled on them. Something like that happens. But here's the thing. Chris Dill, what's up, bro? Here's the thing, bro. You as a decent person, do you think there should be any percentage of likelihood that you show up to a rally wearing another thing and get called racist or a piece of shit or get physically attacked? Why should that be even a possibility? You are a decent person who probably genuinely cares about people. You're a good dude with a good heart who probably wants to have a positive impact on the planet. Is that a fair assumption about you?
Thanks, man. Yeah, I do consider myself a person.
I do too. Do you think it would be fair if you happen to have different political views that because of that t-shirt, you're automatically classified as a racist, bigot, horrible person who deserves to be physically assaulted? Or is it possible that you don't dislike Trump and Vance, but are also still a good person who wants to do good things in the world?
Yeah, sure. I think there are great Trump people.
This is the problem with gross generalizations. And this is why I think a possible reason why these attempts keep happening. This is why it's irresponsible for the left to keep just doing these little hot take things. And the reason it works is because the people on the left don't need proof, right? You were comfortable for the last 8 years believing. You led with the thing. Yeah, one of the examples was that he said that stuff about Muslims that was racist. You were comfortable for 8 years believing he was racist on a topic that with 5 seconds of Googling, we realized, oh, shoot, I guess he wasn't racist. But you had no problem thinking he was racist on that topic for 8 years incorrectly. Imagine if
he says racist things. Is he a racist is different than does he say racist things? He still says racist things. He says things. I'm sorry, that clip, there's no context in that speech afterwards. I want to see the context of him clarifying that to a news reporter later too, because I don't remember any of that either. I would like to see that. You said there was a ton of it where he was clarifying it. From what I remember, he never clarified it, ran on that the entire time, got into office, and then he two things happened. One is he knew he couldn't constitutionally just ban Muslims because that's against the 14th Amendment. And two, also potentially he just wanted to, and maybe and truly, I don't know if he's a racist or not. Does he say racist things is different than if he's a racist? He has said things that are racist. I'm sorry. There's a certain point where you say, if you say that, I'm going to go out there and say that saying that is a racist thing to say. How he meant it, we can argue about. And I would actually give you credence that with your context, he probably didn't mean it in a racist way. But if I posted right now on my Instagram and was like, I want to ban all Muslims from America without any context, that's a racist thing to say, because unless you give context, in the same way that if I say I'm going to ban black people from my restaurant, unless you give context, the reason is because I'm going to assume it's racist is because that's what racist people do. That's how racist people communicate, right? Like, does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, in the sense of, he might not be a racist. I think he knows the way he's communicating is talking to racists and is getting them to like him and get votes for him. I think the way he speaks, he is very conscious of it. I do not believe the man who wrote, what was the book? What's his book? Can you help me? What's his book? Whatever, his book on communication. He literally wrote a book on business. He's a billionaire. Billionaires, I'm sorry, you cannot become a billionaire without knowing how to communicate. That's just not true. That's like not non-existent. I think he's insanely, art of the deal, thank you. I think he's insanely good at communicating. He's one of the best salesmen in the world, right? He's a fucking billionaire. He turned $1 million into $1 million.
Being a good negotiator are not the same thing, bro. He's a fantastic negotiator. But you can be a fantastic negotiator and not be a great communicator.
Taking out Trump, any of that. Do you think you have to be good at sales? Do you think you need to be a good communicator?
I think that to be good at sales, it helps to be a good communicator. Yeah, no, I can tell you this, but this is not, I'm gonna tell you a fact. To be good at sales, it helps to be a good communicator. You do not need to be a good communicator. It helps.
Can you give an example of someone being good at sales without being able to communicate?
Everybody who has ever worked in a call center, a high pressure, one call close call center, those are not good communicators. Most of them, I have run 30, 50, 100 seat call centers in ghetto industry. The majority of those people show up to work inebriated, high, ghetto, bad.
Are they good salespeople?
Yep, because they know how to do one thing. They know how to negotiate the high pressure situation that they're in that moment. Put those people on a seller call, they wouldn't do fine, right? Because they're good at that one thing. So what I'm telling you is that you can be a good closer and not be a great communicator. You can be a good negotiator and not be a good communicator. If you're a fantastic communicator, you can also be average at those things. I'll tell you a great example. Me. I've always been a decent communicator. I've always had a way with words. I've always been a great.
I think you're really good at communicating.
For the longest time, I couldn't close a deal. You know why? Because I didn't know the difference between selling and closing. Because that is not the same thing. So you have to understand the difference between when it's time to stop selling and time to start closing. There's differences in parts of communication. Sure. Inherently, some of us are just better at doing certain parts of the conversation. You can be a fantastic negotiator simply because you walk into the situation and you're good at being high pressured. You're good at doing a pull away. You're good at saying, hey, look, here's the thing, right? Give you a fantastic example. This has gone viral recently, right? The whole Trump situation with the way he negotiated with the head of the Taliban at the time. He showed up in the situation and says, hey, we're going to pull out. Here's how it's going to work. Here's a picture. Why you give me a picture of your house? Because I want you to know I know where you live. He didn't say anything. He knew how to negotiate with few words. You do not need to be a good communicator. Matter of fact, being a fantastic communicator and not knowing how to negotiate is also possible. Being a good communicator and knowing how to do those things, now you're the best of all the worlds. But it's not required. I promise you.
Can I ask you a clarifying question? What's the difference between communication in your head and negotiating? Like, what do those? In my head, negotiation is a type of communication. So, like, what do you mean by like in my head, those two are the same thing?
They're not.
When you're negotiating, you're communicating in a
No.
specific way to get what you want. So
No.
just tell me, what do you mean? Like, how are they different in your head?
Because I'm trying to read this at the same time. I have not, Sip. Sam Bankman-Fried, I don't know the background behind that situation, but the surface level stuff that I understand about that could be a good example, because he seems like a super kind of integrator tech guy who's probably not the best communicator, but he was able to paint a specific picture on a specific topic. Maybe that could be a good example. Cool factor. But I guess to answer that question specifically, bro, you can be a good negotiator by having good emotional control, right? What do I mean? Good negotiators are comfortable with walking away from the deal. Most people aren't, right? When you listen to somebody who's a fantastic closer, they have no problem making it sound like, dude, I can walk away. I don't need this. You can be a fantastic salesperson and not have that skill set. I have seen fantastic salespeople who can't close. Why? Because they don't have the ability to know how to negotiate the deal. That closing part is different than the sales part. It's why you see all these people that's become popular now. People are like, oh, closers are losers, or they don't like the word closer, or it's a tacky thing. That's cool. I get that. I understand that, but it's also wrong. It's just demonstrative lack of understanding of the sales process, because selling and closing are not the same thing. And if you want to use a different word because it sounds better, that's fine. I get that. But closing is a very, very different skill than selling. This is why in most sales floors, in timeshare sales floors, they have what's called a TO. You know what a TO is?
No.
Stands for takeover. It's the closer. That's the person who walks around the sales floor in a call center and listens for a person who's done a good job teeing it up, but they're fumbling it. They don't know how to close it. So they step in, they take over the call, and they close it. They do no negotiating. They do no talking. They do no selling. They do no talking. All they're doing is negotiating for the close. They did none of the front end part. It's a smaller conversation. They use fewer words. They don't have to be great communicators, right? Timeshares, same exact thing. The person tees it up. They do the stuff. They do the report. They do all the thing. Then the guy comes in at the end. Here's what we're going to do. What are they doing? They're negotiating. They're showing the numbers back and forth. Let me go to my boss. It's actually very little talking, very little communicating, because all of that part has been done. We're down to business. You want this or you want that. And you know what those people have to do oftentimes, Jonah? They have to speak in extremes. They have to speak in extremes because they have to paint a picture for you. Closers' jobs is painting a picture. And that requires painting a big, sometimes exciting picture. Have you ever known anybody who's a really, really fantastic motivator, communicator, or closer who's been known or have a tendency of lying or embellishing for the sake of selling, and they call it white lies or storytelling?
Yeah, most salespeople do that.
There you go. Why? Because they understand a principle that they operate under, that in order to get people's attention, you got to use big, extreme examples, right? Now, I don't think you have to do that. I actually take the school of thought that if you're skilled enough, you don't have to do that. But do you know what skill you have to develop in order to not have to lie and use big, embellishing stories? There's one skill you have to develop. You know what it is?
Sure. Tell me. Negotiating? I don't know. Just tell me.
Communicating. It's funny that we actually get here, because this is actually what I talk about. People ask me about lying in sales. People ask me about white lies. People ask me about storytelling. And I always say, I get it. People do it. And these people have good intentions. They have a good heart. I'm not knocking these people. I don't do it. Why? Because I look at it as a personal challenge. If I am a good enough communicator, I don't need to lie, which means that the absence of communication skills is filled by embellishing or big words or bombastic speech or storytelling, which is exactly how Trump communicates.
No, I just want to make sure, because here's my when I say communication skills, because I think we're just like, I just don't think we have the same definition. So I'm trying to understand your definition right now. When I say communication skills, that means anytime I am saying anything to you. In my opinion, being a good communicator means I got across to you the message or the image that I wanted to get across to you, whatever that is. That is the definition in my head of communication, right? So when
does a good job at that?
Well, no, just hold on. So wait, do you agree with that? First off, do we agree on that definition?
Say it again to make sure I'm on board.
In my opinion, being a great communicator means that whenever I say something to you, Quijano, I say it in the way that I want you to receive it. When I say something, you don't misunderstand me. You aren't sure what I said. You're like, I completely understood exactly what you're saying. And on top of that, you're feeling the emotions that I wanted you to feel.
I'm good with that. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you said with negotiating, just because I'm saying few words doesn't mean I'm not communicating what I want to communicate to you, right? Being a hard closer, I'm still communicating exactly what I want to communicate to you in a very easy terms. You either are buying this at $450 or we don't have a freaking deal, right? I don't need to say a bunch of words to communicate how I want you to feel about that, how I want you to take that, and what I want from the situation, right? I think that is good communication skills.
It's not though, because you're missing the sales process. In all of these examples, the sales pitch is already assumed. It's understood, right? All of these situations, none of them require it to be sold from scratch, right? So when you call an agent for the first time and you've never talked to this agent before, you have to introduce what you do, who you are, and the value you add from scratch every single time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say you are doing a follow-up call and I'm like, hey, Jonah, I got this agent. I've been working with them for months. They're already familiar with everything. They want to talk to you about this deal. When you walk into that call, is the conversation the same as your intro call because you've never spoken to them before, or is the conversation different because you know they already understand the full gist?
Yeah, it's different.
Conversation's completely different. Why? Because you're approaching with the intent to close. You are in the negotiation phase, not the sales phase. The way you communicate will be different because your brain is in a different place of the conversation. Make sense?
Sure. But do you
Trump's
think you
brain is in a different place of the conversation. He communicates from that end place. He communicates as if everybody else already understood what's going on. If you notice, that's the way he communicates. Probably because he's been in a leadership position for so long, you could arguably say he's probably rarely never been in a leadership position, right? Because he probably has started from a leadership. Now, he built his own business.
Do you think Trump doesn't know how to do the sales process, though? Like, you don't think he understands that?
He has to. And because he doesn't have to, he hasn't done it for so long, so he just goes straight for the close. He's a closer.
But you don't need to communicate as a CEO?
What's that?
Like, to your team and stuff? Don't you need to, dude, like, I have to know how to clearly communicate to my team what's going on
Trump
and
has
how
people.
things are.
Trump has had people.
He still have to communicate to the people he has, right?
Yeah, but they're speaking at a completely different place, right? When you have, let's assume you're running a business. They are, of course. Jonah, you have a C-suite, right? Let's pretend you're fast forward 10 years in your business.
Yeah.
You're running a 9-figure business.
Yeah.
If you are a sales manager talking to your sales team today, would you agree or disagree that the way that conversation is had, presented, and navigated is drastically different than when you have a meeting with your C-suite team as a 9-figure organization?
Yeah, because you have to communicate different things. That's why it's different.
No. But here's the point. Would you agree or disagree that with 9-figure people, there are certain things that are understood that you do not have the patience, or it doesn't even come to mind to slow down and explain to them, because you assume they should already understand that by nature of being in that position. Whereas if you're talking to an entry-level person, you do speak from ground zero because the assumption is they don't understand anything if they're brand new and this is their first day, right? Do you understand how you're going to, right? This is just a factor thing. So here's my assumption. This is my deductive reasoning as a person who pays attention to communication styles literally for a living. When I look at Donald Trump, I look at a guy who has spent the majority of his career, at least the last 40 years, speaking to high-level people. at a high level. He doesn't need to qualify his statement because people who are billionaires who have people who report to them don't qualify their statements. It's a nature of the position combined with 40 years of habit of speaking in that way. So this guy is used to speaking up here. He's done it for an entire career. He does not go to the onboarding of his brand new staff and say, all right, guys, so here's what we're going to do today. I want you to have a fantastic experience. We want you to know you're a part of the family. He's like, hey, guys, what are we doing with this? The numbers are this. The numbers are shit. Guys, everybody knows this isn't working. The guys are kicking our ass. Our competition's fucking destroying us. What are we doing to get this right? Get your shit together. This is how you speak at that place. He's spoken like this for 40 plus years. When he transitions into politics, he's not going to rechange that habit as a 70-year-old man. Now, arguably, should he? One could argue, yeah, I could see the value in that because your constituents, the voting block you're reaching, doesn't speak that language. They need the context. They need the constant repetition. You know who was fantastic at explaining it at a basic level? Barack freaking Obama. That dude spoke like he was speaking to just the everyday person. He made it simple. He made it palatable. He made it digestible. Why? Because he was a fantastic communicator. I don't see a Barack Obama as a fantastic closer. If I'm building a sales organization, he's my front guy. He's my salesperson. I'm not bringing him in as the closer because the nature of the character that needs to be existent when you're closing is and can be slightly different than the nature of the character of the rapport builder. That is why in a lot of sales organizations, these are two different roles, because sometimes with certain sales processes, to get to the close, you have to be willing to be an animal. You have to be willing to be relentless. You have to be willing to show no fear. And that is a contradictory personality than the one who built rapport. And so if you don't want to mess up that experience, it has to be two different people for the sake of having somebody else to blame. It's the good guy, bad guy thing. This is good cop, bad cop. It's the nature of the sales process. So I would argue that as a communicator to the nation, Barack Obama is a fantastic salesperson. He's a great rapport builder. He makes everybody feel comfortable. He's got a soft voice. He can sing a little bit. He got some swag. He's got some but you know who Trump is? Trump's the dude with the big necklace that's saying, all right, I'm glad you had a good time with all that bullshit. You got some money or not? Right? And so he speaks at that level. Arguably, as a politician, this is why I believe so many people have a problem with Donald Trump and say he's not political. He's not presidential, because their idea of presidential equals a good salesperson, a good presenter. He's never been a good presenter. What is he? He's a closer. He's the negotiator. He's the art of the deal. He's the guy that says all of that fluff and BS. I'm good. I don't have time for that. Why? Because we got something to get done. So you know what we're going to do while you were trying to sell these nations to stop bombing our country? We're going to just bomb. Okay, here what we're going to do. You can't come into the country for 90 days. We're banning everybody. We're banning everybody. Muslims banned. Sorry. Why? Not political, not smooth, not any of those things. Not nuanced, not a good presentation. It was a closer move. It was a threat. It was a tactic of we're going to do this and you're going to get on board. Hey, China, by the way, you're not going to pay your part? That's cool. We're going to sanction you. Oh, NATO, you're not going to pay your part? That's cool. We're pulling out. This is his nature. And people get offended because it's abrasive. But you know what it is? It's the character of a closer. It's the character of a negotiator. And this is why I believe he has a hard time winning people's hearts who need to be finessed, because that's not how he communicates. He doesn't communicate as a seller, as a salesperson. He communicates as a closer. Closers get stuff done. Salespeople make people feel good, but they don't always get the deal. This is the difference.
That was a really interesting theory. Like, honestly, like, I think like there's a lot of credit to what you said. That was a really interesting point to take. Maybe, I don't know. I still lean towards the fact that I think he does know how he's coming off. I think a closer, even if they're more abrasive, knows they're being abrasive and knows how it's coming off in order to get what they want, right? So I would still argue that I think he is conscious of how his words come off, right? Like, I think a closer, they're more abrasive, but they do know how their words come off to other people. You are right. there are two different communication styles, is what you're talking about in my head. But still, the closer has to communicate well, right? If you're a bad closer, I mean, like, if you can't communicate, then you're still a bad closer. If you're not able to communicate, hey, fuck you, China, I'm going to put sanctions on you because you've been screwing my people over, right? I think he's communicating that pretty well. At least in my head, like, he's saying to China exactly what he means, right?
But here's the thing, right? Like, you have to realize that what's the motivating factor, right? He communicates intentionally to the end result, not caring what gets knocked over in the process, right? Because it's a bull in the china shop theory, right? I'm going to hurt your feelings. I don't care. I'm not thinking about your feelings. I'm not thinking about all of that. I need to get this done. Let's get this done. Politicians need to get stuff done simultaneously while making people feel good about the process, that we're getting everything done, guys. But at the end of the day, the question is, what's more important? Making people feel good while we get things done, even if that means risking not getting it done at all because we were focused on the wrong thing? Or is it better to have somebody that says, I don't care who you are. I don't care about your emotions. I'm going to get things done. And if it pisses a bunch of people off, I'm good with that because I'm here to handle business. For me, I would argue that the latter is what's necessary as an effective leader in the country. But you know what it doesn't do? It doesn't poll well. It doesn't digest well to the personality types that need the calm, soothing approach, right? This is where Trump, which is why I've said this many times, Trump is his own worst enemy because he doesn't care whose toes he has to step on to get the job done, because all he cares about is the end result. And they use that as constant ammunition against him. And the worst part is he said it, not how he meant it. That wasn't his end goal, but he said it because he was going for the close. He didn't care about rapport anymore. He's going for the close. And the news media lives right there. How can we take the people who don't understand the difference between being sold and being closed, and who really just want to be finessed, and how do we make him sound abrasive and sound horrible and say, look how bad he sounds? But for me, yeah, that's true. He probably does sound bad, but I'm not concerned about how bad he sounds necessarily. There's elements where that's important. But my concern is, what was his end result there? If your end result is you want to stop drug traffickers from trafficking humans, women, children, and drugs into our country, and so to do that, you make abrasive statements like they're sending our worst, I'm good with it. Probably could have said it better, homie. Right? You probably could have said it better. Why don't you go listen to a couple Obama things and just, man, you finesse it up a little bit for me, bro. Finesse it up. But he didn't. At the end of the day, if you still tried to stop them from coming in, I'm cool with your end result, even though you were a little bit fumbly with the way you presented that end result. That's how I look at it. More people than I care to admit are actually less concerned with the end result. All they know is, I don't like the way it sounded, and because you sounded bad, you must be bad, which means that your intent must be bad as well, which means you're not going to do anything good. And that's where the left lives, unfortunately. And they leverage that effectively.
Maybe. That was an interesting theory, I would say. Like, it's possible. Like, I'm not going to say that, like, that does have logical coherence to it, what you said. I don't know. Maybe. I think in the end, you have to then just look at, okay, what are the actions of the person, right? And that's where I agree. Where in the sense of, like, I mean, in my opinion, that's such a huge fucking issue, right? Because if you say something and I don't know your meaning, what if you do something fucking crazy, right? Like, that's the issue with that. Is like, I don't know what you're gonna do then, right? Like if it's like, okay, so we're gonna just call for a Muslim ban, but we're not gonna clarify it. Maybe he clarified it in other speeches, right? I don't know. But if he's not gonna clarify what he says, then I don't know what he's gonna do ever. Do you see that issue with that? Like, I don't actually know what he's gonna do in the end unless he adds clarification.
But I think that's I think that's the right concern, but I don't know that we're placing the right responsibility, right? So that's a fair concern, but then the question becomes, well, on whose responsibility is it to make sure they understand? You could argue, well, it's Trump's the way he's communicating. Well, then one, I don't think anything he says is this misunderstandable. I think it is understandable. You just have to be willing to listen objectively. So question number one, I think the reason why it's so hard to understand him is because people have been so conditioned to listen to him through a filter, they can't listen to him objectively anymore. So I think that's issue number one. Issue number two is it doesn't help when the media takes 100% of what he says out of context and then uses that as ammunition for their narrative. So now we have multiple things working against the average person. And then the takeaway is, well, if I can't understand this dude, well, of course it's going to be hard to understand him because the cards are stacked against you. You know how you can understand him? You have to go out of your way to do two things. Find your own information and listen with an objective ear. If you can do both of those things and not be influenced, I would argue, Jonah. Now, this is a random and it's a bold statement. You might laugh at me. I would argue a significant number. I'm not going to put a number on it. Significant, greater than 20%, maybe even up to 50%. That's generous, but I'm in a generous mood. I would argue that if the left did those two things, stopped being swayed by their peers, listened to Trump objectively with an open mind and with full context to try to get a full understanding of what he meant before they cast judgment, at least 20-25% of the people who hate Trump would realize they don't have anything to hate. I believe that. I think you would fall into that category. I genuinely believe that. But it's hard to do because that cognitive bias, that cognitive dissonance, that is a very difficult thing to overcome, especially on your own.
Okay. Do you think I mean, I still got my 4 hours of Trump research that we aren't releasing for some goddamn reason on why I really don't like Trump. That stuff is way more important to me than any of this bullshit about the Muslim ban. He did some actions in that 2020 election that was him trying to steal the election, right? And I can prove it on the next podcast.
We got to do it. We got to do it. I'm going to commit to do it before this election. Before this election, I commit to do it. I commit. Okay. That's not bad. It's on me.
Before this election, because everyone thinks I'm just fucking crazy for thinking he is basically wants to be a dictator or has intentions of being a dictator. And all of you are like, yeah, that's crazy. You have no proof for that. I have 4 hours of research that Quijano is hiding from all of you.
I'm hiding it. I'm gatekeeping. I'm gatekeeping, y'all.
You are trying to hide the truth from the people, and I want you all to know that that stuff is 10 times worse than anything else he did, right? In my opinion, we're arguing about very simple semantics right now. I can talk about his actions also that I don't like. I'm not concerned just about his fucking words, right? He fucking dude, the whole thing, all of you look up the fake electors scandal. Look up the Eastman memo. If you guys actually want to do your own research on what he attempted to do on the last election, he basically got random people to submit false slates of electors in order to try to change the results of different states fraudulently, right? So if you guys don't believe it, go look it up, right? His actions.
I don't know if you saw this. Massive Cool Factor says that your ego tracks current inflation levels. I don't agree with this. I left it up here to say my hope.
Inflation levels are low right now, so go fuck yourself. Look up at the inflation rate, Massive Cool Factor. It's at like 3%, so go suck a dick, okay?
Okay, Sip, I would argue if you're doing what I originally suggested, bro. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, ask yourself, can I listen objectively, without a filter, with full context, remove my emotions, and see if I hear the same thing. Let me ask you a question, and I think we can wrap with this because this brings us back to the assassination thing, bro. Let me ask you a question.
At all. You and I never get to
go back. I know we're horrible. We're horrible. This is why we need a moderator. We need a parent to come and keep us on.
All right, go on.
This is a good combo. This is a good combo.
It was good. I honestly, just before you say what you say, I think that was a really interesting points you brought up about Trump's communication style and the difference between negotiating and being a closer versus a communicator that I honestly will think about, because that is very interesting in a way I haven't thought about it before, right? I think he's smart. I think he's like, a billionaire. I'm not a billionaire. I'm assuming to be a billionaire and an incredible closer, you also have to communicate, because at least in my sales roles, I've always closed through really good communication, right? Sure. I've never been a hardcore negotiator, and I've made a fuck ton of money as a salesperson. And in real estate, anyone who doesn't like build rapport with the seller is not going to fucking close the deal, right? So,
a whole different animal, bro.
So like I'll be honest, like I am curious about I am gonna think about that. That is an interesting perspective of maybe he's just he literally doesn't know how to communicate other than as like a fuck you, we're negotiating constantly, right? It's an interesting theory. Like I don't know, and I'm gonna think about it, just so you know, because that is interesting, right? I still feel like he gets. I can't, in the end, it's feelings, because I can't know whether you're right or wrong. There's no way to prove what you said is true other than the fact it fits the facts of the scenario, right? Just in the way there's no way exactly for me to prove in his mental state that he does know what he's communicating, right? Like I can't prove that, and you can't necessarily prove your point. But it is an interesting theory that, like, if I was being objective, I can't say that it's wrong. Like it does fit the facts, right? So, anywho, I just want to say that first.
No, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. That's really what this is about. Like for me, it's all challenging perspective. And I just for myself.
Troll me, dude. I'm sorry.
Massive Cool Factor, bro. I need to know Massive Cool Factor's name because he keeps coming for you. We know Jonah hates women, as demonstrated.
Oh god, dude!
I hate the elderly. He also hates any and over 60 elderly.
People are coming up to me and being like, "Yo, did you mean what you said in that clip?" And I'm like, "No." And I'm like, "Yo, not like, kind of, not really. I'm not really gonna explain it. I'm gonna backpedal completely right now. Like, definitely don't."
Have you gone to Vina's event yet? Because Vina was not here for
tomorrow.
that.
I'm going to Chicago tomorrow, and I'm gonna. If Vina hates me now, I'm gonna be so upset about this. I'm gonna be like, "This is so not worth it. Fuck me, dude. Like, I need to learn multifamily from her. I can't have her thinking I'm a sexist. This is not good."
I'm gonna laugh if Vina brings you up to the stage to publicly flog you.
Explain that. Hold on, let's play a clip real quick from Jonah's most recent podcast, and they just play that clip and put me on blast. Has nothing to do with multifamily. She just wants to like make me look like an asshole.
I can see that. I can see that. If I destroyed your multifamily career by encouraging us to post that video,
I spent money on joining the community. That would kind of blow if she thinks I'm a sexist now. So
you got it. This is your chance to redeem it, bro. Okay, so here's where. Let me ask you a question, Jonah. Right? Because I think this is a good conversation. Do you think it's possible that the left is in enough control that they are intentionally trying to manipulate the masses against Trump in a past political fashion, like in an underhanded, sinister, behind closed doors, we're doing some stuff that's not right to really make sure that we try to do whatever we can to dismantle this. Do you think that's
clarify what you mean there? I want you to be super clear, because the issue is obviously the left doesn't want him to win. That's obvious. That extra part, in a sinister, menacing factor, what do you mean by that?
In that it's been demonstrated that close to 90% of the media for Kamala Harris is positive. In the same contrast, almost that exact same number, close to 90% of the media surrounding Trump is negative. Implication, the left, Democratic Party, and potentially the same banks that we pointed out earlier in this podcast own and are in control of that party. Trump is not a part of that crew, and so they are manipulating the world that we live in, including manipulating the news media, the narrative, the debate, manipulating, cheating to make Trump look worse, potentially hiding real polling data, all of these different things so they can, even if you have to use the word cheat, to win this election. Do you think that that's possible? Maybe, maybe not.
Well, of course, anything's possible, right? I mean, anything's possible.
Do you think it's happening?
Here's what I think is likely. Like, because I think you think that's likely, right? I'm assuming you think that's what's happening.
Like with almost like 99.9999999. I'm for the sake of not being, yeah.
I'll just tell you what I think is happening, right? Personally, I think people have biases, right? I think these organizations mostly have left-leaning people, right? I think that's just what it is. I think media companies probably are owned by left-leaning people. So then there's a bias because of that, right? When you start talking about in a purposeful, menacing way, like there's a conspiracy, as in we're all going to come together and we're going to make it where this guy can't win, and we're going to all say the same things. Like that's what you're talking about, right? Like we're going to all say the same things. We're going to screw him at the debate, all that stuff. That's what you mean, right?
Yep.
I don't think that's happening. Personally, what I think is happening is I think people are biased. So when they hear something that goes against their biases, they react to it negatively. I don't believe in the conspiracy. I personally believe that a lot of these certain organizations are biased. Hollywood's biased. The news media is biased, right? Just in the same way that like Fox News is biased, but towards Trump, right? If you looked at Fox News coverage, it would be 90% positive, right? And they're part of the mainstream media, right? They're not part of the mainstream media, right? So I think people have biases. I don't think there's evidence, unless it can be shown to me, that there's a conspiracy, that it's all purposeful, that we are purposely going to do underhanded things like giving Kamala the questions. I mean, I'm open to being proved wrong. I just need to see the evidence. What I've seen the evidence for is people have biases and then they react to those biases, both on the left and the right. But I just think the media is mostly left-leaning people, right? And same with Hollywood. And then, yeah, so that's my personal opinion. I'm open to being changed by that if you showed me evidence of that, of them all conspiring together. But what I see the evidence for is that there's a bias towards the left in these industries. And that's obviously an issue, right? Like, how do you remove bias from yourself? I think that's incredibly hard and almost impossible, personally. So it's kind of like a conundrum there. So I don't know. That's my personal opinion on what's going on. But what you say is possible too. It is possible, but I don't think that's what's happening unless somebody shows me evidence otherwise.
But here's I think that's fair. But then I guess the question that I would ask you first and foremost is, are you
paid actors, not journalists? What does that even mean? What do you mean by that? As in, like, they're paid to act and not do any journalism? Is that what he means? Like they're like literally they're just. I mean, journalists. News people are given scripts. They've been given scripts forever, since the beginning of time, right? Like they read off, like fucking the old news people read off teleprompters, right? Well, anyways, I'm sorry, Kiana, what were you saying? I was just reacting to the comment.
No, that's fine. I'm asking Jamarco to provide context as it relates to this particular topic, and he's still sending videos about Mexico. Like, bro, like, what are we currently talking about? In any case, there's like, so for example, let me see if I can pull this up.
Do you want me to go off more while you look for evidence of something?
No.
Is that what
Here,
you're saying right now?
I'll give you an example. I haven't read this. I wish it was read in advance, but we'll read it together, right? So this was from Trump campaign releases over 50 examples of Democrats' rhetoric that inspired the assassination attempt. Right?
Okay.
Yesterday, President Donald J. Trump was talking about the assassination attempt. Thankfully, he would be assassination. Psycho was egged on by rhetoric that have. Okay, so let's see what these examples. I haven't read this. Kamala Harris. Yeah. So these are just basic different politicians saying negative things about Trump repeatedly, which I guess isn't the best example. Let me see if I can find some of these things, because the reality is, like, when you look at this stuff, what's this one? Let's look at this one. This is the BlackRock one. This is interesting, right? So let's look at this.
This is the black one. What? Sorry.
BlackRock. See, now, if I was running for president, y'all would have clipped that, and you would have said I was racist.
This is the black one. This is what I've been looking for. Sorry.
Here we go.
I need to stop with that.
Here we go.
Is our appeal to both leaders. What organization?
My name is Brian DeLallo. I teach AP and Honors Economics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Financial well-being to me is knowing that I can be free to do the things that I love to do. I hope when I retire someday, they say, you know, that guy made this place a special place to come to school and gave as much as he could to help the community.
Is that the shooter?
Action.
Was one of those? I forgot what he looked like. It was one of those kids.
Leaders.
Is that? Hold on. Keanu, can we?
I'm gonna refresh it.
Wait, can we do something? Because I don't 100% remember what they look like. So can we get, is there any way to like have like a side by side? Like, can you get like a picture of the most recent shooter and then who's supposed to be the shooter? I honestly haven't done enough news stuff, so I forgot what they look like. You know what I mean?
Right here. So this is the current shooter, recent shooter.
Wait, can you bring up a side by side photo of the guy?
I can't because I'm not sharing.
Can you share your screen? Wait, I just want to hold on. I can just look it up because I haven't seen a picture. I don't know if I've seen a picture.
Hey, right here. I have to hold on. I'm gonna share a different one. Present, share screen, window, and okay, here we go. This is window. So here we go. So this is, y'all see it? So this is the shooter. This one. This is the most recent one.
Can you click him? Click it. I just need it bigger. I just want to make sure because I just want to like do a side by side comparison. Okay, that's him. Now go back to the thing. Yeah, that looks like him. Okay, I'm just double checking because I never saw his face, so I just wanted to be thorough.
Same guy, right? And did you see the ones of the previous shooter in a BlackRock commercial?
Bring up now. Do the second guy. Was it one of the kids?
Yeah, the kid. It was this kid right here. This guy right here.
Okay, and then now play to the second one, just real quick. Just go back to the clip now. I remember what he looks like now, so I can recognize that face. Just go back to the clip and play it.
Just trying to find it. This is a different clip. This is a different BlackRock commercial.
You just have the clip with both of them. Just play that again.
Yeah, but that's a different. They're not both in the same clip.
Oh, that was one clip, you mean? And now we have to go find a different BlackRock clip? Okay.
Let's see. There we go. Which one is this one? Oh, yeah. Same teacher, dude, right? So here we go. That's him right here.
Why is this such bad quality?
I don't know.
This is terrible quality, bro. Can you get like a better...
Yeah, hold on.
Can you find a better quality? I just want to be thorough, right? Like I'm not necessarily taking it and saying no. I just want to make sure I see his face. We're like, okay, yes, they are in both commercials. Just so that we do this right.
Look better, right there. God. Hold on.
You want to do continue without supporting? Okay, whatever.
Oh, I didn't know that was an option. I wasn't reading. All right.
Oh.
Now it's an ad. Ad 1 of 2. Good job, New York Post. Why are you making it more complicated, bro?
Sorry, I just want to be thorough. I want to see it. I want to like, make sure.
You're good. You're good. Do you need jeans by chance?
We should get fucking affiliates for these.
We should get affiliates for this. Yeah, and we need to get our own merch. There you go. This kid right here.
Okay. And now go back to the other one.
So this same kid.
Can we try to get like do we have a non-side shot of him?
Yeah.
Like
so,
it looks similar?
Yeah,
like, is there any point where he turns his head?
They show another angle of him in this. Hold on.
Did he ever? Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. I think it's coming up right here in a second. BlackRock. It's literally a BlackRock commercial, right?
It's a BlackRock commercial. Yeah, we got that part.
Right
okay, wait, stop. Go back to him. Like, try to have it where his head is turned towards us, real quick.
Here you go. That good enough?
And then go back to the guy. Yeah, that looks like him. That's probably him. He has slightly different color hair, but whatever. Well, it looks like
a little bit younger. It's the same guy. It was confirmed that this guy was in the commercial, right?
Guy. It's probably the same guy.
Yeah. So
that is weird.
And this guy.
That's fucking weird. I'm not gonna lie. That's a really fucking. If that's just coincidence, that is very strange, right? I'm not gonna lie about it, right? Now, do you think that proves anything, or do you think that's just more like a weird piece of evidence, right?
That,
what do you mean?
That for me, that's a weird piece of evidence. That may mean nothing, right? Mathematically speaking, if you want to go into the statistics of this,
that is weird, right? Like probability-wise, that.
But here's what we know: the same company that owns the news media, right, is the same company that paid for these commercials. The same company that runs the news media, that same news media is pro-Harris and against Trump. All of their media is clearly demonstrated at being pro-Harris and against Trump. So what you start to see is a pattern. These people that pay for everything really, really hate Donald Trump. And they're doing everything that they can to be against him. And then it just so happens that the same people who are funding the politics, funding the political parties, funding the campaigns, funding the commercials, pay for the news media, paid for these commercials. Now that the people that were in the commercials who have contact with these people went and tried to kill the president, right? I mean, were these people paid to do that? We don't know, right? You know that I don't know if you know this was essentially proven time and time again. You know who is also associated with these people is a guy named Soros, right? You know who that guy is, yes?
I've heard of him. I know him. I've heard Republicans talk a lot about him, right? And I know he funds a lot of Democrats, but I don't know much more about him other than that.
Okay. You do realize that the great majority of the people who were doing a lot of the riots during the Black Lives Matter times, previous election, you realize that there was a lot of news going around saying, you guys realize that pallets of bricks would get dropped off on the street corners for no reason whatsoever. And
I want to see. I would like to see the evidence for that one.
What do you mean? The evidence is out there. You just weren't paying attention to it. This is my problem, Jonah. Like, you say this stuff like I'm presenting to you some revelatory information. This was already proven. There were news articles done by independent media, because it wasn't run by the mainstream media, of people finding pallets of bricks on the ends. And you know what else would happen, Jonah? He's not listening. He's Googling me. Jonah,
I am Googling. What do you mean? I've never seen this evidence. So I want to say, okay, Quijano's made a claim. Let me see if it's true or not. I mean, I'm sorry. That's what I usually do. I'm like, wait, is this true? Apparently, I mean, I don't know, but what I'm looking at, the first three articles are: bricks become fodder for false claims around protests, disinformation, suspicious piles of bricks were placed for construction not to incite protesters. I don't know. I have done no research on this. So far, I've seen three And they might be all biased and lying, and I don't know. But so far, I just Googled evidence, and maybe I should Google something else, evidence of bricks being laid down in BLM riots. And that's the first four things that came up. So I might be right,
but here's the thing, bro. This is like, I'm gonna say this, bro. And to your point, I appreciate the fact that you're looking for this now, but this is just, bro, like, I need you to hear this. Put this in your pocket for later. This is demonstrative of the echo chamber that you live in, bro, because this was common knowledge and you have never heard of it. The amount of things I put out there that was common knowledge that you're like, I've never heard that. I need evidence, bro. There were so many independent people walking by. There were TikToks, there was Instagram, there was independent news journalists going, guys, look at this. Look at this. Look at this truck leaving. There was literally, if you guys saw this, please say yes in the chat. Literally, Jonah, like people walking up saying there's a rally happening today. Why are there pallet of bricks? Who puts a pallet of bricks on a street corner? Why did this get jumped off? Look, there's the truck that just dropped this off. Every single rally, Jonah, every single rally, you know what there was? A gigantic bus full of people in all black wearing masks. Those were the same people that were throwing the bricks. You know what those people were found to be called? Antifa. Antifa was being dropped off. They were bussed in. They did the research as to who owned the buses. It all went back to Soros. This is like information that was out there. So this is what was happening. At 100% of these things, pallets of bricks were being dropped off on the corner. There was countless videos of this. Countless videos of this, right? Look, to be clear, all of these people who saw this, bro, all of these people saw this. Now, because it didn't happen in your echo chamber, you're thinking maybe that all of these people...
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just, why is, like, okay. So, question for you. Because I'm just looking at an article right now, right? I know you're going to say they're biased, right? They're the news media, all of that type of stuff. What they're listing right now are sources of spokespeople from police departments who were dealing with these riots. I'm curious, like, if that's the case where I'm watching, like, I can show you the article I'm looking at right now, right? And maybe they're lying. I don't know. You've just presented a claim I've never heard of before, right?
Okay.
Do you think police people are involved with this as well? Like the police were in on this as well? I just want to know, like, if that's part of this.
Here's what I do know to be true, and then I'll give my suspicions. What I believe is that I know this for a fact. I know this because we saw it in Albuquerque. We saw the buses here, right? There was a full thing. Fun fact, John Jones, the UFC fighter.
I know John Jones, yes.
He was on video stopping one of the guys. Like, he grabbed them and made them stop doing their shit and throw their stuff in there. Right? You saw that video? Yeah. In that same video, up the street was the buses. These buses came from different states, bro. They were bussed in. These people were bussed into every major rally. Paraphernalia was dropped off at some of these rallies. And what were they doing? Breaking shit. They found out who owned the buses. The same dude who funds a lot of these campaigns, right? Were there police involved? I'm sure. I am quite sure at the highest level, these people have bosses that report to them. Was every cop involved? Of course not. I highly doubt that at the lowest chain of command, those people are involved in anything. They get told what to do.
I'm going to send you this article later, but what they're saying is the police are saying it's not true in this article. They're like, these videos are not showing.
The police spokespeople, you honestly don't think that the spokespeople are going to have a narrative that they're supposed to be clear.
I'm just curious, where do you think maybe I don't understand spokespeople. Maybe you know more than me on this. Doesn't the spokespeople come from the police department? Where did the spokespeople come from?
Fair question. I respect this question. And I understand in a world where things operate completely innocently and everything just operates the way we're told it operates, that is a logical question. So I'm not knocking that question. I actually respect that question. I'm going to ask you a different question, because the scenario we're proposing, let's assume this is all hypothetical, right? Can we agree that this is all a hypothetical conversation? In the hypothetical
conversation,
okay,
you think it's real? What do you mean?
Making it feel comfortable for you to answer the question, right? Because this is
I can answer the question. Don't worry. It doesn't have to be put into a hypothetical or whatever. Just you can ask me questions. Like, it's all
fair
good.
enough. So let's say in the scenario where there are financiers like Soros, like BlackRock, big companies who really are behind the scenes. What I told you a couple weeks ago, it's the people who has
I understand. Yes.
In the world where they control things, they also control the news media, which means that they paint the picture of how we see the world, right? That's a logical deduction. If that's true, we can assume that it's logical that they do that. Okay.
I agree with the logical deduction, yes.
In that same logical deduction, if you're a $1 trillion organization that owns multiple other $1 billion organizations, right? And you're trying to shape a narrative for an entire nation in so much that you would influence riots, drop off bricks, drop off people, pay for buses, pay them to do this. The logistics behind this is insane. And this was found out. This was discovered to be fact, bro. Right? Okay. Do you think that you're going through all of that? You're not going to have a conversation with the local police media department before you do that?
I just want to make sure. No, this is what I'm literally just asking you, because the police media department, maybe I'm wrong, I'm assuming these are people chosen by the police to represent what they are saying about the scenario. Am I wrong about that, or am I right about that?
Well, there are people who have a job, who get a paycheck, who are going to do exactly what they're told.
Okay. Wait, that didn't answer my question at all. Answer just am I right or wrong in your head? I'm literally just trying to understand what you think, right?
Yeah.
Like,
no. What's the question?
Police spokesperson. Are these people chosen by the police, you think, or do you think they're chosen by a different entity that is controlled by Soros? No. I
don't understand the logistics behind this, right? Like, I'm not invited to those meetings to understand that. But what I would assume is that if they're in positions of a power and they have certain states that they control, right? And I believe the word control is accurate. The governors and the controllers of that state and the chiefs of police are invited to these meetings where these plans are brought to light. And the question is probably asked. I believe that at the highest level, in these specific areas, they went to places where
the leaders of the police are in on it, right?
100%. And not everywhere, maybe not everywhere, but in these specific situations.
So here's my question then. Your way of knowing whether something is true or not, you've told me several times, is I try to prove wrong. I try to prove against what I think is true, right?
Yeah.
In this scenario with the bricks, right? Or whatever. How would you, like, it would be really interesting, and we could do this for next time with the truth one. We can do it with this one. I want to see you, or like, how would you even start by like being like, okay, how do I know that this stuff is true? Because I have to prove against my bias. Against my bias, if I'm Keanu, because this is how you've told me you prove things are true, is by you would have to try to prove the opposite of what you believe, which is you'd have to try to prove that it wasn't bricks, it wasn't the buses, all of that stuff. Am I correct or am I incorrect?
You are, but then there's a certain point where you have to ask yourself, like, what's really going on? So proving something wrong is relative, right? So when I was researching whether or not the Bible is an accurate document for historical and religious purposes, well, then I would have to, in order to do that, see if I can prove the Bible wrong. Why? Because there are plenty of skeptics who say that the Bible is not a viable text. So let me go to their sources. How do I prove the Bible as not viable? Spoiler alert, I couldn't do that. That took me decades, right? Now, if I did have the time and was as concerned about these topics that I wanted to dedicate that time, I guess you could do that. Here's the issue with this now. The issue is, one, available data, because fun fact, bro, as crazy as this sounds, and this leads to my second half to your answer, unfortunately, the same companies that we're talking about also own Google and Yahoo and YouTube and all of these different things. So even the places we go to fact check the news are owned by the same people who own the news.
So I guess then my question though is, Keanu, is how do I know which is true? How do I know if you're telling the truth, that these videos aren't, I bet they're real videos, but at the same time, maybe they don't know what these are used for, right?
There is an element.
Do you get what I'm saying, though? Do you understand my question? Whether the news articles are just straight lying to me. That's what you're saying. They're fully lying. They're not just them are lying. The police are lying. The news lead media is lying. They're all funded by the same people, right? Specifically with the goal to make these protests violent by giving them bricks. And everyone who's fact checking and saying it's false, they're all in on it too, right? My issue is that I don't know how I could even tell which one is true. Because
I'll answer that. I'll answer that. So I think that this comes down to, which is the second half of the question that I was going to give to you, right? There is an element of, unfortunately, discernment. Discernment is a big thing. And I think discernment is something that we lost. This is the example that I gave you. If you walking into the hood, right? There's an ethnic dude, a black dude, a Latino dude. You pick your ethnicity for the sake of not getting canceled, right? Because I don't want everybody to think you hate black people like Trump hates Muslims, right? But there's an ethnic person of suspicious demeanor, right? You in a hood. You know what I mean? You walking through the hood, your boy's walking up, he's reaching under his shirt. It's known, everybody knows in this neighborhood, if you're not from this neighborhood and you got to go through this neighborhood, you're about to get got. They're going to come for your belongings, sir. This is what's about to happen. If you have all of this context material, you walk into this neighborhood, this specific person, right, of whichever ethnicity, maybe he's a white dude, maybe he's a redneck, who cares? But this person walks up to you and he's reaching in his shirt, he looking like he's coming for you. Is it deductive reasoning to say there is a decent chance something unpleasant is about to happen?
Yeah, I'm about to get shot. What do you mean? Obviously. He's about to pull a gun. He's probably going to pull a gun out and shoot me.
There you go. Would it be naive to say, but I don't have proof of that? It would be racist to say that guy's going to rob me. Why? Because he was black? Why? Because he was Hispanic? That's racist. I would never assume that. I don't have any evidence. Show me your source material of that man's police record. Hold on. We're laughing. Are those fair questions? Are those fair points?
Well, I don't think that relates to this. I could argue why I don't think it relates to this.
But hold on. Is it a fair point to say technically, you don't have clear evidence? Technically, you don't know. Technically, it could be considered racist.
You gave so much context there that honestly, I think you do know. I think you're just a fucking idiot if you can't tell at that point, because you gave so much context there. I don't think we have that context in this stuff.
Here's the thing, Jonah, this is the point, bro, right? You just described the difference between the left and the right. That is what you just said is why the right is so... let me qualify it. Let me qualify it. You can disagree with it. That's fine. But what you just described is why the right at large does not understand what the left at large can't see. Because we're looking at this as, bro, you have so much context that these are obvious evidences that this is a bad situation. And instead of looking at this obvious evidence that they're lying in your face, you're saying, but no, I can't say that because that's racist. No, I can't say that. And here's the thing. Technically, you're right. I don't have proof specifically, but I have a shit ton of context evidence that should make it so obvious that at least we got a clear enough answer that at the very minimum, something suspicious is happening here. So here's my point, bro. You're right. It would be silly to say, well, I don't know this guy's background. It would be racist to assume that he's black, he's trying to rob me. Those are fair questions. And they're logical.
What do you mean? Who's this person you're arguing against?
But when it comes to politics, that's what people are doing, right? So, for example, now let's go back to your question. I use that example. Now I'm going to answer your question. How do I differentiate between the two? Discernment. How did you know that you needed to be careful? This dude was walking up to you. Discernment. You looked at the context material and recognized that even though I don't know for sure, there's enough fishy evidence pointing to what's about to happen here. Discernment tells me that this is not a good situation. This is what I see. This is what the people in the chat that have been commenting are seeing. Because here's what we've noticed for the last 4 years, Jonah, because we are not in the echo chamber for 4 years before, or for 8 years.
Wait,
the
you
last
don't think you're in a conservative echo chamber? I feel like you guys are all, there are things you guys don't know about that I hear also from my echo chamber that you guys have no idea about.
Yeah, I agree that's possible. But I agree that's
all the things I did my research on. You guys had no. I guarantee no one on this, none of the God chatters have any clue.
I would agree, and I think it's a problem for both sides. And you have heard me say both sides need to get better at thinking for themselves, right? But here's my point, bro. So let's summarize this. We have all of the big companies that are backing one side, obviously. And then we have a bunch of people, random civilians on TikTok, countless, bro, countless. Bro, why are all of these vans? Why are all of these people in black outfits getting out of these buses? Where did these buses come from? Why is this bus painted black? Why are there 50 people? 15 minutes later, an hour later, those same people who came out of that bus are breaking windows. Why are there bricks that are trapped over? Like, why are all of these things happening? And then we find out the person who's funding that is a billionaire who funds all of the left. All of the news media is overwhelmingly against one person and for another person. Fun fact, Jonah, do you know that Kamala Harris was literally the least favorite, least liked, least worst polling candidate when she ran 4 years ago? 2%?
I want to stick to this brick.
Yeah, no, I'm going back. Her polling rate, her approval rate was 2%.
Okay.
Now she's all of a sudden the most popular person on the planet. One of two things has happened. Either people randomly started to like her because they hate Trump so much, which is possible, or it's that combined with the fact that they're painting her in such a positive light that she becomes easier to like because they're only talking about the things that are likable. If they were talking about the same stuff they were talking about 4 years ago, it would be that much harder to sell her. Why can they do this? Because the media machine that's behind her makes it easy to manipulate the message. Which masses? The ones that are supposed to be voting, but who's manipulating the media? The same bank that ran this commercial with two people. So what's the point? All of these pieces coming together, Jonah, let me ask you, and this is my final question to you. This weird BlackRock thing, very freaking weird, right?
Very weird. I agree.
Okay. Let's assume we could find evidence for the sake of argument that shows people saying, why did a truck just drop off these bricks? Why did these people in black suits just get off this bus? Why are those same people that just got off this bus throwing these same bricks? How did they know they were going to be here? Why did they park at the convenient spot? Why is this funded by the same person who's in these same rooms with this big bank that funded this commercial? If we knew that was true, would you say that was equally suspicious and weird?
No, I believe these videos exist, Kihano. My issue is that when I watch a video like that, I don't have any context to that video, right? That's my issue. So like I think you're doing a false equivalency personally. I think the example you gave doesn't fit to this brick thing.
I'm gonna ask a different question because this is good. I'm glad you answered that way. So I'm gonna go back to my first question. And then you just gave me my second answer, but I'm gonna say it out loud. We agree that this video with these two people in the same funded by the same company, that's weird, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If you saw that enough times, how many times do you need to see examples of that time and time again, pointing to the same people doing the same crap with the same agenda before you start to say, there it is again. I'm seeing it again. Why? Because I don't need the exact evidence. I've seen it enough times. I know what it looks like. And this is the same thing that I've been seeing going on for years. This is my context that I don't need to go into that neighborhood because I don't need to know this guy's background to know he's about to do something, right? Enough times of you seeing that, it starts to change how you treat the neighborhood you're walking in. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I just don't think, I mean, I agree in the metaphor. I understand the metaphor. I disagree that it fits.
Here's my point. The fact that you've only seen this once is why you still don't see the bus and the brisk example as a metaphor. But when you see this 100 times, 1,000 times, in 1,000 different examples, time and time again playing out, you start to see the example of what it looks like. It's a template. So for simple example, and then this is my last analogy for this. When you get somebody on the phone, you're good. You get a seller on the phone, and the seller starts going on and on and on and on and on and on and on about their medical bills and about all their personal stuff. What personality type is that?
I don't remember personality types. I just know how to react to them. I forgot like the specific name of the personality type. You mean like a red, blue? I forgot all that shit.
Yeah,
I know.
like
I remember what you're talking about. I forgot the name of the colors. I forgot that shit.
Do you know
Sorry.
any of the colors? Do you know any of the colors?
I remember red is like aggressive or something like that.
You get somebody on the phone, you say ring ring, they're like, yeah, get to the point. What do you want? What personality type is that?
Red, I think.
9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be a red. Why? Because certain traits end up meaning a specific thing.
I understand what you're saying.
So that's my point. That's my whole point here, bro. You don't see the connection because you haven't learned to read the personality types. You haven't learned to recognize the signs. That's my point.
Here's my view of it, because there's an issue here. The issue is that you might get trapped into a fallacy, Keanu. That's the issue. You're talking about pattern recognition. Humans constantly do pattern recognition, right? But sometimes pattern recognition can lead you to false conclusions. And this is something I was going to talk about in our truth and evidence video, right? So like, if you want to go back to the metaphor for how you put it, right? With like, you're going through a bad neighborhood, you're getting robbed, right? You have to be able to do good pattern recognition to understand which parts of what you said in your context actually is the threat, if this makes sense. So let's go through your example, right? At what point do I actually become concerned about being shot, right? It's not when there is a black guy walking by me. That's a bad pattern recognition. There is a high likelihood it's a false positive. If you think just because there's a black guy walking by you in a bad neighborhood, you're about to be shot, right? That's a false positive. I don't know. Do you agree with me on that?
I agree.
So
that's assuming you should clutch your purse every time a black dude walks by. That's naive. That's not how that works.
So, then another person walks by me. They're white, but then they do the same motion you were talking about with the hand in the pants. I'm much more concerned about the white guy who does that motion, right?
See, I would say it's neither. I would say neither are a fair pattern recognition. I think it needs to be a combination of things. Any independent pattern in and of itself is not sufficient for the concern, in my opinion.
Wait, hold on. Okay, but this doesn't really have to do with my point. Just give me a second, right? Yeah, let me go through. That doesn't really matter for what I'm trying to get across. So basically, right, the issue is that I understand what you're saying in the sense of I've seen this so many times that I now believe that this also is part of the global conspiracy, right? Or whatever. Like, I'm sorry if I'm misquoting you, right? Like, you get what I'm saying. The issue for me is that I don't think you can tell any of these instances where it was definitely the world government or definitely a coincidence. That's the problem. If you don't have times where anybody's been robbed in this neighborhood, right? There's no evidence that anyone's ever been robbed in this neighborhood, right? Conclusively. But I'm going through this neighborhood being scared of black people because I know there are neighborhoods where black people do commit crimes. Then you've done a false pattern recognition. And my issue with your way of thinking is I need you to show me, I guess, I would need you to show me, let me think about my words carefully here, where like I actually want to say what I want to say. I need you to show me that it's like a pattern where it was the world government and it wasn't whatever the, like literally what I'm looking at right now, and I can show with people per ADL, per the Frisco PD, for instance. Like this is just one example. I haven't seen every single example you're talking about, right? But I'll just show this one example of what I found online once I started Googling it, right? And this might be totally biased. Maybe they're all lying or whatever, right? This is just a tweet, right? Where apparently it was basically somebody saw a video. It's like, why are they dropping off bricks near this protest area, right? That was related to Black Lives Matters. And it was determined the bricks were part of a planned HOA construction project, and with permission, they have been removed to be returned at a later time, right? My concern is it's like, okay, maybe every single time you've seen of those videos was actually the world government, or maybe, and I'm saying this honestly, I hope I'm not insulting you because this is just what you told me, right? Maybe he's not actually checking and seeing if his beliefs are false. Maybe he's not actually doing what he said, because sometimes he doesn't. And I can't tell which is which, because when I see that, then it's like, okay, I don't know. I just don't know which fucking ones are world government or fake news. And every time I look at something that you think is the world government, why is it? It's just like every single time there's a very plausible explanation for that thing happening that has nothing to do with world government. And if there's another plausible explanation, but we don't have evidence actually directly linking it, then I don't know which one to believe. They're both plausible, but I need like the direct link, right? Does that make sense? Like what? Like
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Here's my question to you then. In the scenario where you have two doors to go down,
dude, Massive Cool Factor is trying to troll the fuck out of me right now. He really wants me to just pay attention to him and start he's trying to get something out of me, and I'm like trying to resist looking at it. But keep going.
Don't feed into it, bro. Now here's the thing, bro. I think I love your breakdown there because I think that's the right question. Because what you didn't do is automatically dismiss one of the options because it doesn't match your worldview. That is the right decision, in my opinion. You said, okay, both are plausible. I would argue that more is plausible for people who don't think like this than they're willing to give credence. But into your example, let's say both are plausible. We passed the plausibility step. Both are plausible. Then here's my question to you. And this isn't, unfortunately, a direct answer to your question. But in the scenario where the two plausible options are the example of you walking into a bad neighborhood, is there a point, or let me rephrase that. At what point do you say the risk isn't worth leaning one way versus the other? There is a point where even if I don't have the full example, I can do one of two things. Just say, you know what? I'm going to blindly trust you, and I'm not going to question anything, because why would you lie? Why would you be robbing me right now? I don't know you. I haven't wronged you. Why would you be robbing me? Let me just blindly trust you and take your word for it. Or, because both are plausible, you say, you know what? Even though I don't necessarily know for sure you're going to rob me, there is a point where I've seen enough context clues. I can't know for sure. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to walk away.
We bring that out of the metaphor because I think that metaphor doesn't fit well with what we're talking about. Here's talk about it like in the example or whatever, or like what we're actually
I will. But for the sake of that example, do you understand how, for the sake of the example, sometimes there is value in trusting your discernment over your facts?
In that example, yes, but your facts are informing your discernment is the issue. That's where I disagree with how this fits with what we're talking about. You already gave me it's a bad neighborhood. That's a fact I already knew beforehand, right? You already gave me that people get robbed here constantly, right?
I grew up in bad neighborhoods where I can rob people. So were they right to what's that?
Say that again. I didn't hear what you said.
lots of people grow up in bad neighborhoods that don't rob people. 100% of people in bad neighborhoods aren't going to rob you when you walk into it. But there is a percentage of people that do it. So there is still the argument that states that just because it's a bad neighborhood doesn't mean that everybody in there is bad. Now you're just that's the same argument as well. Yeah, okay.
I never said everyone in there is bad, but like your question to me was, isn't there a certain point where it just becomes worth it to avoid the neighborhood, right? Correct?
Okay.
That was your question, right?
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah. So yes, but that's because you've already presented me with a bunch of evidence that's conclusive. You've already given me conclusive evidence. So you've already presumed and given me the conclusive evidence this is a bad neighborhood.
So when you tell me when you're coming, let's say you come to Albuquerque, right? You're driving through Albuquerque, and I'm like, hey, bro, don't go over there. Just stay out of that neighborhood. You gonna take my word for it, or are you gonna need me to present you source material?
No, of course I'm just gonna take your word for it because you know more than I do.
But it didn't prove it to you. You took my word for it because you trusted the context, right?
Yeah, but the risk is, but okay. I don't think that metaphor is good for, can you just say what your question in terms of like actually what we're talking about?
My simple example comes back to this, bro. Like, this is my point. This is where I say it becomes like discernment is more powerful than we give credit, right? So here's my point. I don't assume everybody's bad. I don't assume everybody. Let me rephrase that point. I don't assume every suspicion I have is correct. I try to be very, very deliberate when I see something saying, I don't necessarily know what that means, but here's what it looks like. And then I put it on the shelf until I get more things that lead to which one versus the other, right? You were here in real time when we talked about the debate. I said, it seems like they're leaning a little bit one direction. The longer the debate went on, the more I said, yeah, it definitely seems like they're leaning that direction. At the beginning of the podcast, I asked you the question if you think it's possible that ABC is going to give her the questions in advance, because I think it's possible, right? I believe it was possible because I believe I understand how this works behind the scenes to a certain degree. It's set up. It's in her favor. They are going to give her the questions in advance, and they're going to tailor the question to serve her because they want her to look better. I believe this is possible. But just because I believed it's possible, I still gave them the benefit of the doubt. Because had I not, the second I heard something that even looked like they were going to be leaning, I would have said, like, see, I told you they were going to cheat, but I didn't say that, right? I had my preconceived idea, my source material, my understanding of the neighborhood, and I said, all right, I think it's possible, but let's see. And then as they were talking, I'm like, kind of sounds like it, but I don't know. Okay, it kind of sounds like it more, but I think we're probably pretty confident, but again, we don't know. Now there's lawsuits coming out from a whistleblower who has come forward and said they 100% rigged that thing for her. Now, that's 2, 3, 4 pieces of evidence that you say, but hold on, to answer your question, that's 2, 3, 4 pieces of evidence. At the end of the day, Jonah, can I say for sure, I know for a fact, can you say for sure, you know for a fact that debate was rigged? Do either one of us know for a fact?
No.
Will either one of us know for a fact? Probably not. So facts, conclusive evidence is really not our goal because we don't have access to the rooms currently where that information is truly conveyed. All we have is deductive reasoning and discernment. That's all we have because we don't know what's being told to us is true or not. All we have is, I think because of what I know about this thing, the media is probably going to be slanted. Okay, that was slanted. Okay, that was definitely slanted. Okay, now there's a whistleblower. Now I got 4 things that are like, and even still, I am not 100%, but I'm like 95. Yeah, we probably knew because why? I didn't go into it assuming I was going to be right. I went into it knowing there was a good chance I would be right, and I waited for the situation to play out before I chose whether or not I was. Does that make sense?
So I would say only the last piece of evidence. The last piece of evidence could be pretty damning. The first pieces of evidence you gave could easily just be explained by the left are biased, but not rigged, right? Like that theory could just as easily plausibly explain it up until the whistleblower one. So then what I would do in this situation is I'd be like, okay, let's find out if this whistleblower is credible. Like, what evidence does he have? Like, does he have conversations between people? Or like, how does he know it's rigged? Or how do we know he's not a psyop from Trump's team, right? Like, my point is that, like, this goes back to Occam's razor, right? It's more likely the simple explanation because there are less things that need to be true. There are less causes, right? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's always true, but I need the evidence. I don't even need conclusive evidence for complicated claims like the debate is rigged, right? I was just explaining why the metaphor doesn't work, right? It's because we don't have conclusive evidence about any of this. That's why I didn't like your metaphor is what I was saying, right? That's why I don't think the metaphor is good. So I wanted you to ask me that question in terms of what we're actually talking about. In terms of the debate, if the whistleblower, I don't know what evidence he's coming out with. Okay, so we're suing ABC. What evidence do you have, Mr. Whistleblower? Do you have conversations? What are you going to bring to court, right? And then if he comes to court being like, here's my text messages to Kamala Harris with all of the fucking questions, then it's like, okay, then like obviously that's rigged, right? But
no, you know that wasn't a fake photoshopped message, right? You can reduce this down.
No. But like, I don't believe. Hold on, just wait a second though. Like in terms of like it being like a Photoshop message and he's just completely lying. Okay, well then like now I'm going to look at what are the motivations of the human being, right? What does he have to gain for lying about this, right? Sure. Like, does he have connections to the Trump campaign? If he doesn't, then it seems like he doesn't have many motivations for this. So then if he doesn't have most motivations, then there's not a plausible story that would lead him to be lying about this, right? If we go back to the BRICS example, like for your story to be true, that means that the police department is in on it. All of the media is in on it. Everyone has to be in on it, and there's no whistleblowers whatsoever in these departments, right?
Or it could be that the media just lied to the police, right? Like it could be just compartmentalization, right? Again, there's a lot of ways you could do this. It doesn't have to be like if I'm planting bricks and I don't want anybody to know, I could just tell the cops, hey, this is what happened. This is the situation. Okay, this is what we'll report. And I'm not going to dig any deeper because my boss told me not to, right? It's not necessarily that everybody has to be nefarious. You know what I mean? I think that it's very clear that we have evidence that our medical system kind of is horrible for Americans, at least from a nutrition health standpoint, right? From a triage standpoint, some great, okay. But this information has been out there forever. They just refuse to talk about it. Are doctors just dumb that they can't research this on their own? No, they're very intelligent. They're freaking doctors, right? So then why don't they care about this information? How come a doctor who is medically trained will look both of us in our face and say nutrients don't matter, vitamins don't matter, probiotics are worthless? When we know,
I guarantee you doctors don't say vitamins don't matter. They definitely say vitamins matter. I don't know about probiotics, but they know of diseases that are caused by vitamin deficiencies.
When I say vitamin supplementation, to be clear, and also to be clear, I have had doctors tell me this. Correct. I have had doctors tell me this, right? That probiotics won't help you. This, that, and the next thing. I have had countless conversations with countless doctors in emergency rooms, without question, who I have walked through the natural things I'm trying to do, different ways I'm trying to manage my diet to help my situation. That's not going to make any difference. What you eat will not matter at all. Just make sure you're not just eating cake every day and you'll be fine. What are you talking about? Factually, we know that to not be true. Do we agree on that at least, Jonah?
Wait, say which part?
That nutrition matters in your health.
Of course, yeah.
But I have sat in doctors' offices, and respect to doctors, I'm not saying all doctors are like this, but I have sat in emergency rooms having these conversations and have had doctors to my face tell me the nutrition will not make a difference. It does not matter. Eating probiotics will not happen. None of that stuff matters. It's not true. It's not. Why? Are they just that unintelligent, or are they just indoctrinated?
It doesn't matter to what? To a disease you're dealing with, or to your general health?
To my gut issues that they couldn't find solutions for and couldn't describe.
here's the issue with doctors specifically, in my opinion. Maybe take it with a grain of salt, whatever. Doctors are only there to make sure you're not dying. That's it. That's the only thing they're trained on.
That's fine, but maybe that's true. But here's the point: a doctor who has gone to medical school, do they have the mental capacity to understand whether or not nutrition is impactful to one's gut health?
Yeah. Nutrition in general, yeah.
But they would literally tell me with their words that it had zero impact. It was a waste of my time. I just needed to go to a gastroenterologist. That is not going to make a difference. I had this conversation repeatedly. And then I had one doctor who told me the opposite. And she was telling me all these natural nutrients. And I was like, why are you doing this? She's like, oh, I'm from Sweden. She's like, this is how we always start things, right? We always start with the natural health approach. And then we go to pharmaceuticals. In the United States, we just start with pharmaceuticals. So I had one doctor out of the countless ones that understood something that none of them were willing to understand. I would even argue that this doctor disagreed directly with her peers. So my simple point is this was the same hospital, same situation, same problem, same presenting issues. But two doctors from two different countries had two not just differing, vehemently opposite opinions. Why? It is not because the facts were different. It was because the information they were willing to expose themselves to shaped their belief system. And because they were only they only exposed themselves to one narrative, anything that contradicted that narrative was silly. When I tell you that these doctors literally scoffed at me like I was some silly tinfoil hat wearing weirdo when I wanted to do that, scoffed at me. This doctor was like, yeah, just unfortunately, that's the way it is. What?
Change your diet? What did they scoff at specifically?
When I was talking about the dietary things, I said, look, guys, you guys can't figure this out. Here's some dietary things that I'm trying to at least help. Do you think it would work? Yeah, that's not going to make a difference. Yeah, that's not going to make. I'm like, what do you mean it's not going to make a difference? Just that. Okay, I know you can go online, but online is going to get really confusing. There's all kinds of differing things. None of that stuff is proven. You're going to just want to go and make sure you're seeing a specialist. Scoffing at stuff that another doctor literally encouraged, affirmed. We had a whole conversation about what I was doing. The doctor was like, yeah, honestly, you're doing everything I would suggest. Literally, I have no additional things for you. If you want, I swear to God, this is exactly what the doctor said. The doctor said, everything you just said you're doing is exactly what I would suggest to you to do. So you have two options. Wait for a specialist in 9 months, or just keep doing that and then do like an elimination diet. That would be the only thing I would suggest. And my guess is by the time you have to do the elimination diet, or by the time you get your referral, you probably won't even need it anymore. So this is my point. Why did one doctor say the exact opposite thing? And this is my answer, bro. And this circles back to what we're talking about right now. The doctor, that's just a
terrible doctor. What if the first doctor was terrible? There are terrible doctors too.
But 100% of them that I have been to in 15 years all said the same thing, bro. I had one doctor that didn't. 99% of them. 99.
Well, do you think that's the world government though? Like, what do you think that is? Because in my head, because I have a doctor family, and I know how they think. Okay,
I'll give you this is my answer. I think that what they did is a reflection of what we talk about every single time we're on this podcast, bro. The American doctors were so set that they were right because they're doctors. Well, why were they so confident? Because they went to medical school and they believed that what they were told was right. Why? Because their teachers told them it was right. They were indoctrinated to believe this line of thought. They were indoctrinated, bro. That's all it was. They were indoctrinated in so much that anybody, and guys, challenge your doctor to talk about nutrition. And I would say that 7+ out of 10 doctors will probably scoff at them. This is changing.
Doctors aren't taught about nutrition. That's the issue.
It's a scapegoat. because they can educate themselves just like their patients do. What they should do is they shouldn't scoff at their patients who did take the time to educate themselves. So what's the issue here, Jonah? What's the issue? The issue was it took someone who came from a different school of thought. Literally, somebody who was not indoctrinated by a specific worldview was able to see options that were available to all of them. The truth was available to all of them. But out of 100 doctors, rounding, only one of them was able to see that truth. So here's the question. If we're talking about what is truth, then mathematically speaking, the 1 out of 100 was right and 99 out of 100 was wrong. Statistically, the likelihood of that person being right is low. The majority are telling you, right? The peer review data states. So technically, scientifically, the odds were not in favor of that Swedish doctor. Yet and still, she was the correct one. Why? The truth was out there, but what we were being presented as truth didn't match truth. So what were we being given? We were being given regurgitated information. And we were being told we had to trust it because you're a professional. We have to trust it because you're a reputable news media. We have to trust it because you're a doctor. We have to trust it because you're a teacher. Well, now those teachers are teaching some really, really weird stuff. So this idea that we have to trust it because you hold a position of reputable nature is naive. All this does is reinforce that the need to stop and think for yourself, regardless of what you're being told, is all the more important because you will be scoffed at by your peers for questioning what the information that is presented to the masses told, for questioning the doctors, if you will. But it doesn't mean I was wrong. I was right. I was in the minority, but I was right.
So there's a couple of things I want to say about this. So the whole thing with doctors is very different than politics. First off, we can get into doctors too real quick.
The mindset's
the issue with doctors is that, and I agree with you, I think this is part of what you were saying. When you're trained, when you're mainly given a hammer, everything's a nail, right? That's the issue with doctors sometimes, right? Is if you're going to them with a nutrition problem, that's not actually their job. That's the issue. People don't actually understand what a doctor's job is. A doctor's job is not actually to make you feel 100% well. A doctor's job is to make sure you don't die, right? So,
well,
and this is like
clear. I left a hospital one time because I refused to get an appendectomy. My appendix was about to burst. It was an emergency situation. They were scheduling me for an appendectomy, and I told them the United States is the only country on the planet that has modernized medicine who defaults to surgery before something like antibiotics or a natural remedy. There are multiple steps before surgery that need to take place and can take place safely before you recommend an appendectomy. I would like you to go one of those routes before we do an irreversible procedure. The doctor said, well, I don't feel comfortable with that. I want to do this. I said, is it equally possible that antibiotics would work just as well? And we hold on. I said, he said, yes. I said, okay, I want the antibiotics. His response, I am not going to give you an antibiotic. I want you to do a surgery. I said, just so we're clear, I am not doing a surgery. So your options are, if your job is to make sure I'm safe, give me antibiotics, or I'm to keep me safe, or I am leaving without a surgery. He said, I am not doing the antibiotics. You can do what you'd like. And I left. Their job to keep us alive is also
just one doctor. So I'm sorry. That was one doctor. I don't know about that doctor. I don't know about appendixes, right?
Appendices.
All I'm gonna say is because I also talk to doctors. I have doctors in my family, right? I know tons of doctors, right? The issue is that sometimes when you're working on a problem, I don't know anything about the appendix situation. I truly don't, right? I don't know whether you're right or the doctor's right or anything about an appendix situation. What at least I've noticed in my experience, because I've had experiences where I had stomach issues for like 2 to 3 years, debilitating stomach issues. And every single doctor told me, we can't find anything, sucks to suck, right? And then I just realized, or I started doing my own research, and I realized, oh shit, this could just be all psychological, because I was dealing with different psychological issues. And then when I started dealing with the psychological issues, that started resolving itself. The doctors didn't know that or couldn't recognize that because they're not fucking psychologists. So the issue is when it starts going from something that's physical outside of their field, and I would argue nutrition kind of is outside of their field. You'd be shocked. I don't think it's that big of a deal in doctor school. They're worried about diseases. They're not worried about a general nutrition thing. Then you're going to start coming into problems because Americans aren't educated on what you should use a doctor for, right? I don't know about the appendicitis thing you're talking about. I truly don't. Like, I just don't know why that doctor was being such an asshole if truly he recognized that antibiotics could be the thing. I don't know if there were other like circumstances that made it where he felt like you should have a surgery, right? I don't know if you gave him the middle finger, Quijano, and we're being an asshole, right?
I did not.
I just don't know.
In hindsight, I
don't know. The issue then, though, is, for instance, I really like the doctor's examples. Now, should we never trust doctors ever again with any issue, right? I know people who've had similar experiences to you, and they said, even if I'm having a heart attack, I'd rather just deal with it in my own house. That's crazy to me, right? Is that crazy to you? I'm curious.
I think it's two things. Yes, I think it's crazy, but I think it's also demonstrative of the big problem that our medical industry has created by their malpractice, to be honest with you. Like, to put it, now, this is not a generalization to all doctors. Obviously, everybody in the medical profession does not meet this qualification, but there is enough that it is systemic. And what I think it's systemic of is two things. If you want to go back, who's paying for the doctors? Who actually funds medical school, right? When you get down to the common denominator, it actually becomes scary because it goes back to the same people who created this video. But that's a different conversation. But even if we keep it at a simpler level, let's keep it at a less nefarious.
This podcast, the people funding this podcast, is that what you meant by this video? Which video?
Podcast. The video with the
Pfizer. Everybody, Pfizer and Moderna. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
That's exactly correct. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Yeah. The even if you just take it past that, this, for me, the reason why I even bring this up is it is an epidemic of the inability for Americans to freaking think. We're stupid. I'm sorry. We're lazy. We don't think for our
clip that.
It is what it is. Clip it and share it. We are. Okay. We're stupid. We're lazy. We don't think for ourselves. And we got a million excuses as to why, which is exactly my point. This Swedish doctor was willing to have the same conversation with me that I had been asking all of these other doctors to have, and they weren't. This is not a truth issue. This wasn't a facts issue. This wasn't a medical safety issue. This was a closed-minded issue. This was an indoctrination issue. They were so indoctrinated to believe that their little tiny worldview that they learned from their pharmaceutical company funded college is the only end all be all in understanding when it comes to human health. But then you got other nations on this planet who understand the exact opposite. So this, for me, is, yes, we can get into the systemic process of how this all started, and that's a different conversation. But at the end of the day, as individual adults, we are responsible for our own education. And if I'm a doctor, I should be smart enough to be able to say, I went to medical school. A big pat on my own back for being able to make it through that, because that was a grueling 7, 8, 10-year process. I earned my degree, and I deserve to be respected for that knowledge. But the second I got into medicine, what I realized is there was a lot I didn't get taught. There was a lot I don't understand. There was a lot of information that if I had, I would be able to perform my Hippocratic oath more effectively. So let me go educate myself. But you know why they don't? Accepted naivete, right? Ignorance. They're willing to think that they know so much they don't have to learn, or fear of liability. They would rather not help someone than risk the liability, which is a whole other set of issues, which means we're handcuffed to doing what we're told. we live in a system that people are just really comfortable staying naive because of fear of reprisal, because of fear of consequences, because of the work that it takes to do it. And as a result, we got a bunch of people who don't ask questions. And that's why I like this podcast, man, because we have to ask these questions. But it's hard. And at the end of the day, all of the information may not be available, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. When I say it may not be easily available, but it's still out there. We just got to be willing to do the work.
Yeah, and I think it's a good place to end it because we're way over and we barely talked about the assassination classically.
True profit paradox. We didn't get into it. We talked about
paradox. You and me just go off on whatever the fuck we feel like talking about. Guys, we in our WhatsApp chat, we make all these goddamn plans of how it's supposed to go. 5 minutes here. We're going to talk 10 minutes. Then we're going to bring up this clip. Then we're going to bring up this clip. And then we're going to talk about here for 20 minutes. And every single time, me and Keanu just start talking about doctors and bricks being thrown and whatever the fuck.
Aliens. It is what it is. If you guys enjoyed the conversation today, please let us know in the comments. Guys, like a couple of inches above.
Look at Gianmarco. Wait, hold on real quick. Gianmarco's just like, bro, I fucking put in all this work and you fucking lunatics just do whatever the hell you feel like.
Yeah, it is a little bit true.
Gianmarco's our producer, guys. Give it up for Gianmarco real quick, everyone in the chat.
Yeah. You know how you can give it up for Gianmarco? Do two things. One, send him Italian bread because he's Italian and he doesn't like other countries' bread. Two, hit the like button on whatever platform you're watching this on. If you're on my YouTube, if you're on Jonah's YouTube, just go hit the like button. Don't be rude. Don't be greedy. It takes a couple seconds. Share this with your aunties and uncles. If you guys liked the conversation, let us know. If you didn't like the conversation, let us know. But at the end of the day, I think I don't know. I'm gonna say this was one of my favorite conversations with you, Jonah. I appreciate you being, I don't know, open-minded to the consideration of outlandish ideas.
What I did this time, and this has been because you and I have had some communication issues, right? So what I did this time was like, instead of me immediately saying what I think, I'm going to just ask you questions because I think the issue is sometimes, and I'll blame it on myself. I'll just say I'm the one wrong for this. Sometimes I hear things you say and I don't fully understand them, or I don't take a moment to clarify what you mean by certain things. And I'm like, before I respond, I need him to clarify what the hell he's saying. For instance, the malicious part about the news media or whatever, right? I wanted you to clarify that because in my head, I don't think it's malicious. I still think it's more plausible that people are just biased, right? And it's not like a global conspiracy. That's just like, there's not enough direct evidence for a global conspiracy that at least I've seen. Maybe you've seen a ton. Maybe we'll show it on this podcast. But so far, every time we talk about it, it's X, right? But if I respond with that question and then I understand exactly what you're saying, then I can respond correctly or in a way where you don't feel like I'm just throwing out your ideas or that I'm brainwashed or whatever. And also that I actually fully make sure I understand what you're saying before I disagree with it, right? I still disagree with most of what you've said so far, like generally speaking. But yeah, I want to at least make sure I understand what you're saying before I vehemently disagree with it.
At the end of the day, man, like, here's the thing. I think it's plausible. I don't know that it's possible. I think there's an element of possibility that we do convert you, right? And maybe we just fully convert you. Like you buy a tinfoil hat. Your parents
crazy though, Keanu?
What?
I'm gonna just eventually just do the reverse Uno on you, and you're just gonna become a liberal, and it's gonna be crazy in front of everyone. Could you imagine? It'd be pretty wild.
You got to help me pick my pronouns if I do that.
I am praying that you look at my research objectively about what Trump tried to do in the last election. I will. Praying to God you do it objectively. You don't put on a filter, because I do not see how people can see this research and not be like, okay, he tried to steal the election. Like he obviously did deceitful things to try to steal this election. If I can convert you on that and I don't convert you on anything else, I'm gonna die happy, to be honest. Because then I'm like, okay, we can at least this part. I'm going to be happy with. And then the rest of it, I don't know if I'll ever get you on the world government or whatever, but whatever. We'll see.
It's because unfortunately, I'm right in this topic. That's the only thing. This is not but on the Trump thing that you sent me, I could be wrong.
There's so many funny clips from this one. And then, by the way, I'm just right. Clip 2. By the way, Jonah, how many more sexist clips you got or whatever? Just do a clip. That's what I want clipped out of context.
I'm gonna one up you, Jonah. I'm gonna one up you. Not only am I willing to look at the information objectively, I am willing to come out here and just publicly admit, hey, by the way, I might disagree on Trump's opinion, Jonah's opinion on Trump and everything else, but on this, he was right. I am willing to publicly say that. I would. All I ask is in return is if I present a counter presentation, you hear the counter presentation with equally open mind.
I'll hear it.
That's it. Here's the thing, guys. I've said this time and time again, and I mean this. If nothing else happens in this podcast, but we learn how to evolve and demonstrate how to have good dialogue surrounding weird ass
word again.
Right?
Did you hear what I said?
No.
Evolve, that tricky word coming back up again and again.
There it is.
It is. He does believe in evolution, folks. He keeps using it in his language. So he subconsciously believes in it, but tries to psy up all of you idiots because it's funny.
So because it's funny. It's the epic troll because trolls didn't evolve. They were the weakest link.
Okay, we gotta get this shit. I got a flight at like 6 a.m. tomorrow to Chicago.
Oh yeah, well, all right, guys. Have a good time. Please tell your friends about this. Hit the like button. If not, you're a liberal like Jonah, and if you are a liberal, then if you don't hit the like button, you're a Trump supporter like me. I guess.
If we get raised $1,000 for Kamala's campaign, I will die. Nope, I'm making that $10,000 because you guys actually might do it. If we raise $10,000 for Kamala's campaign, I'll dye my hair blue.
I would rather than if we raise $10,000 for me and Jonah, let's keep the money. She don't need it, dog. Like let's keep the money. Let them raise it for us at least, bro. Second of all, I may not show up on the podcast.
If you want to raise the money for us for $10,000, Lewis, you lead the effort. I'll dye my hair blue because that would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious. And then you gotta, we'll come up with a whole plan for it.
It'll be great. It'll be fun.
Next week's gonna be fun. We'll keep you guys posted with what's gonna be happening. Tell your friends and families, your aunties, uncles about this thing. Jonah, have a good time tomorrow. I hope Vina doesn't kick you out of the event for your overt sexism. That's another one, guys. Profit and Paradox, changing conversations, making conversations great again. One combo at a time. Love y'all. We out. Peace.